is my temple. Your tears rinse my feet. I walk out, I'm able to carry your peace. It reminds me of a song that I heard long ago. Maybe I've always known that you were right there. A simple melody playing over and over in my dreams. But somehow out of reach, eluding me until I release. You come close to me when I release, and I let you take the lead when I release. My heart starts to see when I release. When I release, you said, come to my garden, eat from my tree, step in my river, let it take you deep. Your heart is my temple, your tears rinse my feet. You walk out, you're able to carry my peace. It's an ancient sound heard from the ones who came before, and now it's here once more to pierce your soul. A simple melody playing over and over in your streets, like a whirlwind turning kings, tearing down the dark. That's where I release, and my heart starts to sing when I release. I let you take the lead when I release. You come close to me when I release. When I release, it's all in your feelings. It's all how I receive your sound. All in your feelings, your emotions, they find me out. It's all in your feelings. It's all how I receive your sound. All in your feelings, your emotions, they find me out when I Don't cry no more, my dear. Don't you cry no more. I'll be waiting here, my dear. I'll be at your door. Do you hear me knocking? Do you hear my drum? To draw you from your fortress that's been overcome. 'Cause you've been hiding in the shadows of the rubble and debris, and you're still living through a battle. It's been done for many weeks, but listen for the sounds of restoration coming from the streets. Let it remind you you're still alive. Yeah, there's still life up in them bones. Don't dwell on the casualties. For your heart was meant to roam, so watch the company you keep. They will drag you under where the dead are found. Don't give in to slumber. Press on through the higher ground. 'Cause you've been stranded in the valley of the hopeless and the dead, and you're still haunted by the ghosts who left you stuck there where you stand. But may these words bring revelation, lifting you up out this wretched land. Yeah, let it remind you you're still alive. Hey.
What's up, everybody? We are live in the building. We're here. It's Tuesday night, and I got the fellas with me. We're going to get into some stuff. You are watching Young Lion TV.
Young lion, everywhere I look, they're dying. Everywhere I look, they're dying. Young lion, everywhere I look, they're dying. Everywhere I look, they're dying. Young lion, won't you get up and start fighting? Everywhere I look, they're hiding. Young lion.
Yeah. Young Lion TV, Tuesday night. We are in the Lion's Den, and we're live like we do it every Tuesday on our podcast. So for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, welcome to the Lion's Den. This is Young Lion TV podcast, where we are just a group of family members, brothers, and like-minded people, friends that grew up together, and we like to talk about things that are going on in the world from our perspective, growing up in this country, and, the things that we've experienced and the lessons that we've learned along the way. But we like to talk about culture. We like to talk about family. We like to talk about being husbands, being men, being fathers, and how that is so important in the world today. So if that's something you can get with, make sure you guys hit that like button, share this video so other people can see grown men having these type of conversations, and not only talking about sports all the time and fights and nonsense. So I want to give a shout out to those that are with me this evening. So you see me sitting by myself because we have a brother that usually sits next to me, but it's his birthday. So Well, his birthday's tomorrow, so he's going out tonight for his birthday. So shout out to Moon. He's not here tonight, but we do have, of course, we have the half black, half Indian with the Spanish last name. He is Mr. James Garcia. Is sitting in with us this evening, and also I got my big brother, but he's everybody's big brother always. And he is the preacher, the teacher, the people reacher, Mr. Jacob Eugene Evans III, sitting over there. You always make that face. And, of course, we got holding us down on the production side of things. She's the best producer in the world, and we love her very much. She's our mother, Miss Angelique Lopez. Not related to Jennifer. But... in the chat, we also have some of our Young Lion family members. I see y'all in there. Courtney Davis, it was just her birthday yesterday. Shout out to Courtney. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Courtney.
Courtney is definitely one of our family members, one of our Young Lion Patreon members. We appreciate you. Shout out to Theris, who is also a part of the Pride. Theris is in the chat right now. Again, if you guys make sure you guys like this video, share it, hit that that notification bell if you're on YouTube. Shout out to everybody who is watching on Rumble, and if you're watching on YouTube or on Twitch or on Twitter, we appreciate you guys. Make sure you share the video and help us spread what the Pride is all about. Also, if you want to support in other ways, we do have merch that you can get in. The link is in the description on all those videos. Just check it out. Go to the merch store. You can cop some hats, some T-shirts, hoodies, all that stuff in the merch store. And, yeah, we have Patreon. If you want to become a member and become a part of the Pride for as little as $3 a month, you can go to our Patreon, patreon.com/youngliontv. And head on over there and become a part of the Pride, where we have some plans for the Patreon that we're gonna get rolling on. So we're just we're happy for all the support that we do get over there. Shout out to all of our Patreon members. You guys have no idea how much you have helped us keep this thing going and just keeping us from being able to do this once a week. I'd love to be able to do it more. So, the more people we can get rolling on that, the more we'll be able to do it. But yeah, so.
You said pride,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
what do you mean by pride? Because sometimes,
Well, I mean, pride isn't
the pride before the fall.
Pride is
like,
before the fall, right?
What are we talking about?
Pride is one of the 7 deadly sins, right?
No,
No, it's not pride. Pride
well,
isn't in
I
there?
mean, you know what? You could say that because haughty look, like it
Yeah.
could be. That's considered pride, I guess.
Yeah.
You could say that.
Yeah, I guess it's woven in there.
Yeah.
But no, we're referring to a pack of lions, a community of lions is referred to as a pride.
Right.
And because the podcast is the Young Lion podcast, it's just part of its own brand. Do you know what I mean?
But I would say, like, even in terms of the pride of a father, right? And so we're all under the pride of God.
Right.
We're a part of God's pride
Mm-hmm.
in terms of humbling ourselves, right? To His will.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. So, like I said, Moan is not with us. He's handling his birthday situation because tomorrow he won't be able to do it. So he did it tonight. But a lot of birthdays right now.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. Like, I think a lot of people were, what's 9 months from now? 9 months before now. Yeah. What's that? Springtime, starting.
March.
Weather's getting a little nicer. People feeling frisky.
Yeah.
Listen, isn't that when the rabbit? That's the fertility season, right?
Yeah.
And the Valentine's.
funny.
Yeah. It's like March.
Yeah. That's funny because there's so many birthdays this week.
Yeah.
So many people that we know have birthdays this week.
Yeah.
But yeah, Liz's birthday was Saturday, and we all hung out. That was a fun time. Got to hang out.
Cousin Melissa's 2 kids are this few days apart
Yeah.
this month.
Yeah, everybody is around this time, man.
Oh, and Ricky's birthday was this week.
Oh wow. Okay.
Your daughter's birthday's coming up.
Yeah, on the 26th. Yeah, Carter's birthday was the same day as Liz's.
My goodness.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Corey's birthday is same day as Moon's. Courtney. Yeah, so many people we know have birthdays right now. Yeah, so it's just one of those times, man. Everybody's being born around this time. You know what's funny is, like, a lot of people pass away during this time too.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Like if you notice it, always around the Christmas holiday, New Year's, you hear about a lot of people passing away, like celebrities. Our dad passed away right after New Year. A lot of people pass away around this time. I don't know why that is either. It just seems like maybe the cold weather. I don't know, but a lot of people pass away around this time. But yeah, man, we had some fun over the weekend. Birthday celebration. My mom got to get her groove on a little bit. We went to Adelphia's.
I saw the videos.
It was just we were cracking up. The
Yo,
old people that were there
Did you have a good time?
trying to look like they're 20 years old.
They're having a good time.
No, but it was just sad to see these women with the short skirts, and they're like in my age, 60s.
so my mom, she used to be on the dance scene. For those who don't know, when she was younger, she was a world-class hustle dancer from the 70s.
Do the hustle.
Yeah, they played that. They played that.
I know, Mom. I know.
People always say that song. And we
I
never
know,
danced
but
to
it
that
has
song.
it in it.
I know,
That's why
I know.
you sing it.
Right. It's like when people talk about disco, they always go to Disco
Yeah,
Inferno.
Yeah, that one too. Yeah.
But real disco dancers didn't like that song. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, shout out to Emma who just checked in the chat. But it was interesting, man, to go there. You know, even Liz was telling me, she was like, man, some of these people I recognize from back in my 20s
Wow.
still coming here.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, and she was saying that you know, they still doing the same thing. I was telling Jake earlier today, like it was hard for me to be there and just still, it's like, because especially on the inside, like I was saying, my mom used to be a dancer, so she knows a lot of the DJs and stuff from that world, and the DJ that was there is someone she knows.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he's
still doing
he's
it.
still doing his thing, but he's playing like, you know, Gambling Huff. He's playing like the oldies stuff. And my mom goes up to him, says hi, and tells him why we're there, and he shouts out Liz's birthday on the thing. You know what I mean? But just seeing like these people in their 60s and 70s, bro, still trying to do it, like still dressed up and in there trying to holler at girls and women and like
Oh my
being
God.
creepers with the young people, the younger people.
So you're not saying that people can't get dressed up at that age.
No, I'm not saying
no,
that.
it's the way they were dressed. It
It's-
was just unbelievable to see old ladies. Seriously,
It's about the mentality.
Yes.
It's one of the things that we talked about before, where it's like you see people that don't want to grow up,
yes,
that don't want to, they never want to move past that phase in their life. Because when you're a child, you do as child do, but when you grow older, you let go of childish things. That's
Yeah.
You see certain people, and we talked about this last week with the Charleston White interview, where he talked about why is it always 40 is the new 20. 40 is the new 30, 50 is the new 30. Why are people always hung up on that? It's because they don't want to embrace moving past that era in their life. They want to stay in the era where they can just, be doing their thing. I don't know. It's like, that's what I was seeing. And it's interesting,
Well,
man.
I think it's the connection to, like, for women, it's beauty. A flower. They compare women to flowers, how their beauty kind of fades over time, right? But that's only on the outside.
Yeah.
Right. And so many people are so concerned about what the outside looks like. But even with God, what does God talk about? It's not the outside that you should be concerned with. It's the inside, right? It's the inside that matters. So if that just shows you what in our fallen nature, we care so much about our outside. People are looking, oh man,
Yeah.
they look good. Like, oh man, I look good tonight, right?
Yeah.
Like everything becomes the outside appearance, but then in the inside you're filthy. Inside you're dirty. You're
Right.
very, very dirty. You cover up on the outside what the inside looks like.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you've been out anytime like
No, I haven't
recently.
been out in a long time.
Man,
oh
it's
my God,
it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like I totally felt uncomfortable and out of place there. Like
I felt
Were
so
people having fun, or was it
uncomfortable.
like people having fun?
No,
good
we
time?
were having fun with each other.
Right.
But just to see the way the people were acting, and these people are old, and they were acting like did you see that lady coming up to me and saying things to me? Like,
Yeah.
This is weird.
There was this like, you know, there's just a lot of, you know how many guys tried to hit on my mom? Like, old dudes just coming up, like trying to get her number, trying to hit on her.
Okay.
And then like all the whole group of girls I was with, because I went with Liz and her friends, felt like a weirdo because I'm like the only guy with all
That's why I
this
sent
whole
you the
group.
cameraman
really-
emoji.
Yeah.
Well, it's good you were there.
But I ended up having to be like
Yeah.
the bouncer of the group because it was just like
All these men around.
hovering, dude, like
Hovering,
vultures.
hovering.
Like
He
literally,
immediately regretted it.
they were just encircling them.
You didn't want to go when you were there.
Yeah.
No.
But I'm glad you did though.
Yeah, I had to. I couldn't let them go by themselves. But yeah,
Oh, and
it's-
as soon as we walked in the place, they were playing Gumbo,
Gamble.
Gambo and Huff.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They
As
were
soon
playing.
as we walked in, Jimmy
Yeah.
said, "Look,
Yeah, they were playing. They were playing. I ain't jiving. I'm jamming when we
Right.
walked in.
Nice.
Yeah,
I enjoy like the old school music sometimes. Sometimes it's just fun to go out.
it was fun to be there with
Yeah.
them, but to deal with all that other stuff
Yeah.
and the way they looked like it's just they were there for one reason. Most
It's
of the
it's
people.
the atmosphere.
Yes, yes.
But the same thing can be said about salsa too. Like there's a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
there's a lot of people in that world that are
there's no distinction to me.
it's a
It's
meat
all
market.
the same thing. Like,
You know?
because even like that was just the inside. The outside DJ was all the younger like club music. you
Oh,
know?
okay.
So that's where all the younger people were. I saw a dude from soccer. I saw people there that I
When
know.
you say younger, they look like 40,
Well,
45.
younger than the inside was 60, 70, 80 years old.
No,
still
I
trying
know-
to do it.
I know that, but I'm just saying that they were that young.
The outside was like 30s, 40s.
Yeah.
Some people in their 20s. But they were playing like, you know, 90s, 2000 music, some
Old music.
dance music. Yeah. So
That's
it was
our old school.
that was where I kind of was like really dealing with, like, inside it was just kind of creepy old men just staring, you know. One old dude was like being extra, you know, just being a stalker kind of. But outside, when we was around the younger people, that's when it was like I had to like stand in between people, you know, because it just was hovering. It was like vultures, like, you know how dudes are in the club for one reason, you know.
They only play one salsa song, and I was dancing with what's her name?
Janae.
Janae.
Yeah.
Janae,
Yeah.
Janae. There said Peter Pan syndrome.
Yeah. Peter Pan syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what's funny is like I saw a funny take on Peter Pan. It's something that I said in the past. Like, what if Peter Pan is the actual villain and
Yes, I've heard that before.
and Captain Hook is the one trying to stop him from trapping young boys in Neverland because he's the one who always wants them to come and live with him forever because he don't want to grow up. You know what I mean?
Tell them about the Running Man.
The Running Man. There was one dude. Bro, there was a dude that was hilarious. And Christine got the video of this, so I gotta like send it to y'all. There was one dude. You know how there's those dudes that like don't care who's watching and they just do their thing on the dance floor? This guy, literally, his dance was jogging in place. Like, not on beat, not like to any type of rhythm. He was just jogging in place.
He did his own running.
And he had a jogging outfit on.
He was literally just jogging in place, like
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
song it was, the same tempo too. He would just be
But
jogging in
Wow.
place.
the funny thing is, when we went outside, he was right next to us, too.
Yeah,
That's where they get these things from. When you see these movies, you know, you go to a club, you got this one person. Yeah, let's do it.
yeah.
That's the Roxbury guys.
Yeah, there was a lot of those guys there. I was cracking up, man. How many
Yeah, It was
people?
funny. It was kind of funny.
Yeah.
I don't miss that. You know what I mean? That time. I don't know. Like, I feel like life is seasonal, and I think a lot of people, like, there's nothing wrong with going out having a good time.
Yeah,
But I feel like I'm in a different season now.
right.
Yeah.
So I accept it, you know, and it's like,
But that's what I'm saying. So, what is that thing where people get stuck in that loop of never leaving that season? What is
Yeah.
that? You know,
I think it's like the remembrance of yesteryear. You know what I mean? You're trying to capture what you felt back then. You know what I mean? And just, you know, it's like you were talking about soccer, right? Like you were saying, I feel different at 42 than when you did just a few years ago.
32. Yeah.
Right.
When you're in your 20s, you don't have as much responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, life hasn't hit you yet.
Right.
Like in terms of, when you have kids, you get married. A lot of people did it that way, right? Had kids, then get married, or didn't get married at all.
Yeah.
But you start to get like, oh, I have responsibilities. Some people never wanted these responsibilities,
Yeah,
so they're
just dealt
going
with it,
into
yeah.
it in a way where it's thrown upon them, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So now, like, they get caught up. When you get married and you have kids, you really should prepare, right? But when you're doing it backwards, you're not preparing.
Yeah.
And then you're dealing with it all at one time. It can become overwhelming.
Yeah.
So then you're going back to the time where you didn't have all that. So a
Yeah.
lot of times what happens, you had these kids, now the kids are grown up, right? You go back out. You didn't
Yeah.
get a chance to really live that life.
Right.
You feel like you missed something.
You missed out on something. Yeah. You see that there's so many stories now of people who got married in their early 20s and had kids, and they hit those.
We know some.
Yes, we know a lot. And then the kids get older, they're in their 30s now, and now all of a sudden they want to get divorced and live out their 20s again. It's a sickness.
I think you see that more with women though, like especially when they have children younger and their relationships sour,
Yeah.
and then they hit the club scene aggressively.
I think that's because women subconsciously know that their prime years are in their 20s, like as far as not by in reality, but in as far as just attractiveness, like the power of attraction. Women know that their prime years of power of attraction is in their 20s. So like when they feel like they gave all that up, they want to gain some sense of like I can still use it,
Yeah, when we were younger, man, we would go out, especially like on Thursdays or Wednesdays. Those are late night. It was always MILFs, always those type of
MILFs.
There was always there. It's always the old, and the older women were always more aggressive
Yeah.
than the younger women.
Because they wanted to see if they could bag a young guy.
Always.
Because somehow that was going to validate them
Yeah.
to feel like they still have it. They
Right.
still, you know.
You know how many, dude, I see it all the time. It reminds me of a movie. I'm just thinking about how many people like want to be validated.
Yeah.
I
Reminds me
think
of
that's
that.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me of that movie. Not This Is 40. You remember that movie?
Yeah.
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 But the movie that was based off of, it was like a play off of that movie.
It was a play off of that movie?
Yeah, it had to do with Was it Knocked Up?
Knocked Up was the movie where Seth Rogen gets that girl pregnant.
Right. So the sister.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
This Is 40, right? The sister.
Is it
Yeah.
the same
It's
universe?
the same. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just.
But she was with Paul Rudd, and she wasn't with Paul Rudd.
Yeah, she was.
Was she? Oh,
Yep.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, but so when they go to the club, remember they go to the club
Yeah,
together?
yeah.
She's pregnant,
Yeah.
right? And then she's like,
And what's the dude's name? Craig Robinson is the bouncer.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yo, that
Yeah,
scene
yeah,
is
yeah,
hilarious.
right, right.
Yeah.
And she ultimately she felt like she was young, right?
Yeah.
And then the moment
She still thought she was young and
he's
hot.
like, but
yeah.
you old.
He was, yeah. He was like, let's be honest, lady. Like, you old as hell trying to get in this club. And your friend is pregnant. Like, what are you trying to do right now? Yeah.
I would see. I would see the same thing with men.
Yeah.
You know, still dressing a certain way.
Yeah.
Especially if he has a little bit of money.
Yep.
He comes with the car and he has to be up the front because he wants everybody to see him.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. You know, with guys that do the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, everybody goes to Miami or some place and
Right. Rents a Lamborghini
Yeah.
and, with their Gucci sunglasses and tries to stunt on women. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I thought that was interesting going to the club and seeing that again. It's just like it never changes, man. And that was like, I could see if we went and it was a regular club night and there's 20 somethings in there and we just felt old and out of place. But no, it was like from 20s all the way up to 80-year-old people in this club, and you see them all doing the same thing. It was just,
that place is gonna be like a staple in South Jersey.
oh, it already
Forever.
is, man.
It's like forever.
Yeah, you can still go to Adelphia's. All right, so let's get into I'm gonna play some clips before we get into the topics that we had.
Okay.
So first thing I want to show y'all, I saw this clip on X, with Twitter, now X, and it was them breaking down where all of this hair y'all buy comes from. And you might want to rethink how you're getting this hair. You're putting this hair on your head that you're buying, especially for black women. You know what I mean? So you could pull this up, Mom.
Oh, I see.
You know that most affordable human hair extensions come from city drains? That's right. In India, workers actually collect hair from public drains and plug holes. They clean and treat this hair, making it look nice and shiny. But the truth is, it's not virgin hair. It's straight from the drains. This is the only reason human hair extensions are still affordable. Otherwise, they would all cost thousands of dollars. It's a hidden secret of the beauty industry, and many don't know about it. What do you think? Would you still buy them knowing this? Share your thoughts and spread the word. You know that most of...
Yeah. So
That's
we knew about from what was his name? Chris Rock's documentary, Good Hair, right? He showed how they were getting a lot of the hair from those Indian temples, right? Where they would shave, but from the drains. I didn't even think about that. That's free hair.
What kind of clogging is going on around there?
Bro, you live in a house with a woman, right? And a daughter now. Wait till she gets older too. Wait till Sophia gets older, bro.
Yeah.
You know how many times I got to unclog drains
me too.
in this house? And it'd be full of hair, bro. Full. Like you put that little thing in there and you pull it out.
Wow.
Full of hair.
Wow. That is nasty.
So think about that. Next time you buying that what's it called, Virgin number 24, whatever it is, the Malaysian perm weave. A lot of times it's coming from them drains, man.
That's an industry.
That's an industry. Bro.
Wow.
Pulling that hair out of them drains and you gluing that to your head. And we were talking about it. I don't know if we've ever talked about that on here, but even think about the spiritual implications for those that believe in, like, spiritual warfare and all of that, or know about spiritual warfare. I won't say believe in it, because, but all of that hair in India that is donated at those temples, they're being donated to a god. They're being.
I do know that it's a sacrifice.
Yeah, it's sacrificing their hair to a god, and then you're buying that hair and putting it on your head. You know what I mean?
He has that in a documentary where the girls are shaving their head.
Yeah, that's why I said
and
the Chris Rock documentary,
it's
Good
in there.
Hair. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's in there. But yeah, so Mom, you gonna get you some of that hair?
Nope. I'm old already.
That don't stop people. You saw did you see some of them weaves in the club?
Yeah, a lot of weaves.
Yeah,
That's where the most of the hair comes from, India?
yeah. Most
India,
of the hair comes from India, Asia, like Malaysia, Philippines, stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Everybody wants that silky hair.
You grew up with it.
Yeah. No, I don't have nothing.
At your soul.
All right, so we got this other clip Jake sent me. This is the dark secret, the truth about this. This is McDonald's dark secret, the truth about their meat. Here we go.
Stop eating the McDonald's.
Here we go. Let's play it.
In fact, they use downer cows. I don't know if you know what a downer cow. I used to work on farms in New Zealand. You know, my first business was the modern farm system is so bad for animals. Okay, that milk cow specifically, they push them so hard to produce milk, the cow just basically starts. It's almost like fainting. They can't stand up. Their bottom legs come out from under them, and you call them downer cows. So eventually, you have to they shoot them with a bolt. And McDonald's, you getting that downer cows, boy. People like McDonald's, I'm going, In fact, they use downer cows. I don't know if you know what a downer cow. I used to work on farms in New Zealand.
Yeah, I know.
You know, my first business was
trying to
the
watch it
modern
again.
farm system is so bad for animals. Okay, that milk cow specifically, they push them so hard to produce milk, the cow just basically starts. It's almost like fainting. They can't stand up. Their bottom legs come out from under them, and you call them downer cows. So eventually, you have to they shoot them with a bolt. And McDonald's, you getting that downer cows, boy.
So the cows are milk cows that can't stand anymore, and then they slaughter those cows, and
Well, they stress the cow out from all the production. is what I've heard of this before. But
So-
it's so much milk production.
Think about that meat though. The meat, that's got to affect the meat.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of that,
Well, they're feeding. They're not feeding them grass.
right?
Right. They're not. Even that's a problem. Like with the milk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
what we're-
grain.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to eat grain at all.
No.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of these cows develop
Ulcers,
ulcers and boils and stuff, and they have to treat those with the antibiotics. Yeah, because the feed. And then now you got to look for grass fed and finished because they found a loophole in the grass fed system
Organic,
where
yeah.
it's like
Makes
they
it
can
organic.
feed it a little bit of grass
That's
once
enough.
a day and then grain the rest of the day. And it's like grass fed cows.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, like you said, the modern farming system to supply is massive consumption. right?
Yeah.
So in order to supply this, they just have to say a small. In other words, like this is how we get our meat, and
Yeah.
it's enough to.
Especially at the price point that McDonald's probably wants, because think about it, like you used to get a double cheeseburger on the $1 menu, That's 2 patties of meat right there.
Right.
For $1. There's no way you can supply that if you're really taking care of cows the way that they're supposed to be taken care of.
Yeah. And you taste it.
Yeah.
I haven't had McDonald's. I can't since we were selling CDs.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
this is years ago. I stopped eating McDonald's.
Yeah, I mean, I never.
But
That's
Yeah, I barely ever eat McDonald's anymore.
yeah. But yeah, it's just what are we doing? It's all about money.
It's all about
Yeah.
All about money. Like what do we, not just like you look at how we don't take care of and just taking care of the animals.
Mm-hmm.
Like what kind of respect do we have for the animals
Yeah.
when we treat them like that? And because so many people are disconnected from it,
That's the big one.
yeah, we don't see these things
Absolutely.
happening.
Yeah,
you know?
we've taken agriculture out of any curriculum, so we have no idea how the production of food is, whether it's from the livestock or even the growing of vegetables, or how it's harvested, how these animals, because the feeding lots, most people don't even know that. Most animals, when they get to a certain poundage, they're sold to a feeding lot.
Yeah.
And the feeding lot, they call it finishing, where they take them there, and then the goal of the feeding lot is to get them to a certain weight to then sell them to the market. So the wholesalers, they'll come in and they want to buy the heaviest animal because they sell it by the pound.
By the pound,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? So that's how it's done. You know what I mean? So think about that. What's the quickest way to do that? Well, it's going to take a long time for these animals to eat grass, especially cows. So what do? You these feeding lot, the troughs, if you see them, it's just grain. It's just oat and grain, all that kind of stuff like that. So that gets them the poundage they want. They can sell it heavier. But the
Yeah.
animal is really overweight. Like even the modern chicken, they're called broilers. Most of these chicken is really a mutant, really.
Yeah.
And the chickens can't walk.
Yeah.
They just maybe can walk like a short distance and they just plop down. Mm-hmm. Have you guys ever seen like chicken when you buy them? Sometimes the legs are bruised or bones are broken.
Yeah.
Like that's some of those fractures are actually existing. It didn't. You could throw it probably happened in the packaging. Those are probably existing injuries. Just the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so like you said, we don't have a stewardship over the animals that we're
No, we
eating.
don't. Yeah.
So, I mean, what do you expect? And then when you think about it, because of that, that's how you get the pendulum to swing the total other way, and you get this rise of veganism, where it's like they're going to fight for the rights of these animals by just only eating, plant-based stuff. But then even that becomes a marketing ploy, an industry amongst itself, where that is just as harmful as the meat industry. So then it's like neither one of those things solve the problem. It's about greed not being at the forefront of what we do. It's about we have to be more connected to the food that we eat and understand how important it is for these animals to be well taken care of, for them to be reared properly, for them to be properly nourished, because that meat has to nourish us.
Yeah.
We can't it's just like the produce that we eat now. We have all this GMO stuff because people weren't buying if there was a whole bucket of apples there, and some of the apples were a little bruised, or they weren't perfect, people wouldn't buy those. They would buy the ones that looked amazing. So then those other ones go bad. So then you can't sell those.
How, you know, Produce Junction, we go there a lot. You know, that's the guy. He told me it's the same product that's sold wholesale to ShopRite, Wegmans, but it's the stuff that they reject.
Yeah, right.
Right. And I asked him, I said, what do you mean reject? He's like, well, they have buyers. These companies have buyers that come and they're like, all right, we want 100 crates of this, but it has to be like this.
Yep.
So all of the apples that are, most of these, the transportation of especially like vegetables, fruit, and stuff like that is done in large shipment. When it gets to a storage house, you have wholesale buyers that come in and they buy for Wegmans, ShopRite, or whatever it is. Well, everything that's not, that they don't want, that isn't aesthetically pleasing, like you just said, that's sold off to like the mom and pops, the Produce Junctions, those kind of places. Like there's nothing, or farms for food, for animals and stuff like that. So like you said, it's the aesthetic. We want something perfectly round. The color has to be right.
Yeah.
So that's what they buy.
And they started realizing that, well, in order for us to provide that, we have to genetically create that.
Yes.
And then it'll last longer on the shelf. So if people don't buy it for a couple weeks, we can get away with selling it still. It won't go bad after a couple days.
Right. Have you guys ever seen like even like the original fruit, like watermelon doesn't look like watermelon?
Yeah.
Like
bananas.
even bananas,
Yeah.
you know, even we're eating hybrids, but even something interesting. And
Some of it though is a little stretch.
Yeah.
Like I've noticed that with that stuff, the bananas, the watermelons, like some of it is just about cultivation, right? It's not about genetically modified.
Right.
Some of that.
Well,
stuff.
no, yeah, there's a difference, but I'm talking about the genetically modified seeds of the fruits that are overly sweetened and also last long as heck.
Right.
Don't go bad.
and even seedless. Even seedless is not a
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
Seedless is
Well, seedless has more to do with grafting, because what they would do is take, if a fruit would genetically grow without seeds,
They take
that's an
that, yeah.
abnormality. So they take that and then graft from that one, so they can grow more of that with no seeds.
But what I'm saying is, think about it, right? Something with seed, because it needs that fruit needs more nutrients to be able to germinate the seed. Because as the fruit is dying, it's the dying flesh of the fruit that germinates the seed too.
Right.
So just by doing that, you're reducing the potency of it. You know what I mean? You're not gonna get anything out of that. Like, it's sweeter and everything like that. It tastes like
and
it.
it's more convenient because you don't got seeds in the way.
Right.
It's
That's
about
really what it is.
convenience.
Right,
Yeah.
People don't want to eat that.
Yeah, people don't want to spit out seeds.
Remember when you were in Trinidad and my uncle gave you sugar cane?
Yep. Yeah. It was one of the best tasting things I ever had. And I was going to bring this up too. The mangoes I had in Trinidad, we got them right from the tree.
Yeah.
When we went to the beach, right?
Yeah.
And the first thing I remember, I took a picture of it and I was like, and I think I posted it on Instagram. I was like, no one would buy these if we saw these in the supermarket. But these were the best tasting mangoes I've ever tasted. And inside, they were perfect. But on the outside, there's brown spots. It's like discolored. It's not like when we get mangoes here, it's like a perfect looking little fruit that is like the color is so bright. And, so we focus on those things. But I'm picking one that's growing right from the tree and it doesn't look that amazing, but it tasted way better, and it's probably much more nutritious and full of vitamins than the ones we get.
Nutrition.
Yeah. Because that's the other thing. Like, a lot of our fruit there's no nutritional value to it anymore because of the modifications.
Speaking of meat, though, we get talking about that, right? Like, even like the term halal and kosher, it's really the processing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's it's making sure all the blood is out, that none of the innards, the guts touch the. You know what I mean?
Right. That's
So,
what keeps it.
Yeah, that's all
from
it
being,
is.
Tainted.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Right.
It's nothing special. Because a long time, those, especially with halal, it makes it sound like someone's praying. Like,
Yeah.
That's what I remember. I was like, is that what it is? They're praying, praying over the meat. And some of them do, but it's really the process and cleaning it. Like I said, versus, let's take cheeseburgers, right? Like, you go to buy a cheeseburger. In that packet of meat could be like 6 or 7, maybe 30 different cows.
Yeah.
That have been grounded up, but it's in, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
We don't know that, but it's like that's probably what it is. If it's coming from a slaughterhouse,
Yeah, I mean, and I think a lot of that stuff shows that they still have there's still a reverence to the art of how they butcher their meat, of how they process things. And even though like some people will say, "Oh, that don't even matter no more," but there is something to that. There is something to the fact that they, you know, they hold to those values, and I think there's a reason why, you know, they have done that for so many years.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find that. I saw this thing on Twitter. I wanted to show y'all along the lines of what we're talking about, where people were showing pork and how, like, you know, the modern pig is basically a mutant of wild boar, a domesticated version, but it's like, you know, technically it's a mutant, just like dogs are mutants of the wolf species. But they were making the case that pigs were half human
oh,
and half wild boar created by the Nephilim. And that's why God told us not to eat pigs. And then they were making the comparison to like why pig organs are so close to human organs and why pig like skin color is so close to human skin. You know, it was interesting. I wanted to show it to y'all to see because they put a pig hand next to a human hand. You know what I mean?
a big hand.
Yeah, dude, it was weird.
But in the New Testament, it says you can eat anything.
Yeah, it does.
But you think about it, right? Like, let's be honest, right? I'm telling you what I've seen. I'm not telling you what I've seen. I have seen chickens eat other chickens.
Yeah.
Like the chickens that's dead. I've seen one of our cows eat a snake. I've seen one of the horses eat a snake.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it. I've seen goats so I know that everybody thinks pigs are gross and they can be and they are. But I've seen this. I've literally seen them doing it. I remember walking up and I saw one of the cows and she was chewing something and it was flopping around. I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
I went around and she tried to run away from me and it was a snake. She killed it and she chewed it. I don't know if it was because of a defensive thing, but she was eating it, you know, and it was a snake in her mouth. It wasn't a big snake, but she was still eating it.
But the difference between a cow and a pig is that cow's got 4 stomachs.
Yeah, no,
You know what I mean?
no.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying that
yeah.
we everything is heaped on the pig because pigs are.
Because pigs like to roll around in mud. They eat anything.
Yeah, they will.
And
But also they don't
have
have
sweat glands. People talk about that all the time.
Yeah, and they don't have the same digestive system.
Yeah.
So you're not going through that process of truly getting that nutrients out of things like a cow does.
Right. A cow gets every last nutrients out of that grass because it regurgitates it and eats it again.
That's
and
true.
Yeah, like us.
I found it. I found it. It took a while.
But like us, like a lot of times like people don't realize it if with a lot of plant-based stuff.
Yeah.
Especially raw stuff. Like when you're eating this stuff, like, oh yeah, it has protein. Yeah, it has these things, but you don't get a lot of it because you can't even process it.
That is true.
Right.
That is true.
So you're not able to when we eat it and break it down, we can't break it down enough to where we can get that nutrients out of it a lot of times.
That's one of the biggest arguments against like pea proteins and getting proteins from plants is that it's not as bioly available as it is.
You have to
meat.
take a lot more of it.
Yeah. And the same thing with vitamins. Like a lot of you got to watch the vitamins you buy because sometimes, you know, the way they process them or the way how much of the vitamin is actually in there, your body doesn't absorb it. So sometimes it just passes right through you, and you're just wasting your money.
That's true. And plants, you know, on some plants, not all, some plants uncooked. Like there are certain plants that have
Toxins.
toxins. They need to be cooked.
Yep.
That's a natural defense of them.
Yep.
Like, there's certain insects that won't touch certain plants.
Yep.
Even animals won't eat that.
Yeah.
Or like you've seen a dog when a dog is, they go eat the grass.
Yeah.
There's purpose for this stuff. And I think, though I agree that, yes, could we eat more vegetables? I think some people overdo it.
Yeah.
You know, because let's be honest, the kale thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
look at kale.
Yeah.
Right?
That was a craze for like 10
That
years.
was yeah. But before that, people sort of, not saying cook it per se, but they blanch it in water. But it went to this level where it was like just eat it raw. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Kale was crazy. Because when we were kids, no one ate kale.
Nobody.
Yeah. I never heard of it.
My dad would make it sometimes, like instead of collard greens, he would make kale.
Kale was in a soup.
Yeah, well, no, he would make it like greens, like how soul food greens. He would make kale instead of greens. That was the only
I made
time.
kale too.
Yeah, but let me bring this up just to get y'all opinion on this, so you can see what I saw. So those are the pig hands, and then there's a human hand mixed in there. You see?
Come on, man.
It says, let me read it. Because people be cracking me up on here. It says, the creator made wild boars, but pigs are GMO, engineered by the Anunnaki long ago.
the
The ancient scroll of the giants talks about the ancient genetic engineering in summary. Swine are already 50% human genetics. Yahuwah told us not to eat pigs.
Yahuwah.
He knew.
Come on, man.
They are already 50% human. Many are ignorant and uneducated on this topic. You either have discernment or not. Human opinion or preference does not matter. Only the actual truth matters. Paraphrase from a 2022 post by Dottie Wendler and shared by our sister Suzanne Height. Just now in 2023, this is something I've been telling people for years too, but they don't want to believe it. Why do y'all think pig skin, eyes, and organs are always a good match for medical transplants? Reaching?
I mean, I'm not going to say that it's could be totally, completely wrong.
Right.
But what I am going to say is these are people coming to conclusion. I can hear it in their talk.
Right.
Yahuwah.
Right. Yeah.
Like the fact that they said that, because you already know where that comes.
I know where that comes from. Yeah.
That train of thinking comes from.
Yeah.
You're taking something and taking it way too far than you really understand it.
Right.
And that's what a lot of
jumping
people do.
to a huge conclusion.
Yeah, jumping to conclusions.
Yeah, I just thought that was funny. As we were talking about this stuff, I remembered that. And I wanted to show that to y'all before, but I didn't have a reason to. So that was funny.
And they put their hand like this.
It's funny how they mixed in the Anunnaki.
Yeah.
Right? And the giant scroll.
Giant scroll.
Like there's a
those are two totally different
But the thing
concepts.
is, like, there's barely any, like, if you really want to go to the giant scroll, there's barely any of the giant scroll out there.
Right.
But the funny thing is, the Bible specifically says, if you eat meat and you eat vegetables, don't tell that person that you're eating meat. Oh, you should eat meat. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Because Peter said, I can't eat any of that stuff. That's not holy. And the Lord said, he made everything holy now to eat.
Mm-hmm.
So really, that's all bull. You know what I mean?
And it's funny, is that people like that, they'll be, bring on the lobster, bring on the shrimp. And that's all in the same thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's if you feel like that's what you want to do,
Right.
Do it.
that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
You know,
Don't tell us
I'm not
somebody
gonna.
else, you know?
I'm not gonna fault you for it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna be. You can't do that. No, you want to eat. If you only want to eat vegetables, only eat vegetables.
Yeah. All right, let's get into this next clip. I thought this was a funny clip. This dad is teaching his two young children about paying taxes and government programs all in one.
Real quick, let me shout out a couple people.
Okay.
Before we go. Because we had Lisa Sloan checked in, Jeffrey checked in, Jeffrey Walling. We had Lynette Jackson check in. Hi to all.
Oh, yeah, I see. Jeffrey said, first time I tasted mangoes in Rosie Roads, Puerto Rico, man, so juicy, so sweet. And I have since then tried to find that taste. Can't find it other than those mangoes that fall straight off the tree. That is a fact.
Yeah.
Bro.
Whenever Leslie's dad or mom, usually his dad, he goes to Puerto Rico more. Whenever he comes back, he always brings mangoes and avocados because it's right where they live. They just take it off the tree, but they're so much better.
So much better.
They just have the avocados are so like smooth.
Yeah.
The way they
Creamy.
taste. Yeah, creamy.
Yeah. Even in, I remember when we went to Grenada and they brought us a bunch of mangoes from the tree.
Yeah.
Mangoes were so good,
Yeah.
They were
man.
good.
Yeah.
I know, man.
Emma said, I'm missing fruits from back home. Yeah, I bet, man. Remember them?
Where's Emma from?
He's from Cameroon.
Okay.
Remember those passion fruits, bro, in
They were
South
good.
Africa?
They were good.
Every morning we had
Yeah.
fresh passion fruit for
Yeah.
breakfast, bro. It was so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
DR, they had it too when we were there. Like their fruit platter had papaya
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Man.
Yeah.
And it's of course it's not like you know. So I loved it, man. It's not like the typical strawberries, like that, you know.
Yeah.
So they had that.
Yeah, I've always loved, ever since I was a kid, trying new fruits like that. That was like a passion of mine, like trying fruit that I never tried before. And I still like, there's some people on TikTok that's what they do. They try fruits from around the world and they make videos.
And you know what's crazy is the nutritional value in those kind of rare tropical fruits are actually better, because like strawberries, blueberry, like those things can be hybridized quicker.
Yeah.
But like passion fruit and like papaya, you can't do that. You know what I mean?
There is
Certain
so
things.
many crazy and amazing fruits that you wouldn't believe like exist. When you see people pulling out like those channels that I watch, like they pull out these fruits that is like, what is that? And then they pull it open. It's like this amazing thing. They're like, oh, this tastes like partly mango, but also partly custard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's
You see that a lot in like Asian countries.
Yeah.
Asian countries.
That fruit that Aria likes, what is it called? It's,
Oh, rambutan. She loves
I never
that.
ever had that before until, and it's good.
Yeah, it's really good.
Like lychee.
Yeah.
That's not.
Lychee.
Yep. That's an Asian fruit. Yeah. Yeah, I love fruit, man. Who else was on here? I saw another comment. Oh crap, I just lost it.
Have you guys ever had canepas?
Oh, Lynette Jackson said hello.
I think I have.
Of course.
I don't think I have.
Yeah, you guys call them Chinette.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, they have a version of it. It's the same thing, but they just have a different name.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah, they're good too. Very.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's because they can't. A lot of these, not a lot, but a good amount of these certain fruits, they can't. It's not mass production. You know, they can't do it.
Yeah. All right, let's play this video. Dad teaching this kid about taxes and government programs. Here we go.
Are you guys ready to learn?
Yeah.
Okay. So you made all this money, right?
Yes.
Okay. Move
Fire the
your hands.
cameraman.
Okay, so you made all this money, and now the government comes in and they leave you with only that much out of that much. Listen, but you worked really hard for all that money, huh? Okay, so your sister, she doesn't want to work, so she's going to get that much money to do nothing. And then the rest of this will just go to nothing but the Chinese.
She took my money.
It's her money because she got some of what you worked for because she didn't want to work.
That's just like... I know, it's sad.
Is that Jordan?
I thought the same thing. Like, yo, this is Jordan family right here. Yo, I swore I said the same thing when I watched this the first time. Yo, he said, and this money right here is gonna go to nothing but the Chinese.
He should have a thumbs up with Gavin Newsom.
Right. No, but he teaching them about how it works, man. You work for this money. The government says, well, we're going to take this, which is, some people believe that is unlawful theft.
Yeah. Which is interesting when you think about all this stuff going on right now.
Exactly.
With these illegals coming in.
Yep.
And they're giving them
cell phones.
Money, cell phone.
$7,000, $5,000 to $7,000 on a card.
Yeah. And a plane ticket to anywhere they want to go.
Yeah. Who's paying for that?
Right. We are.
Yeah.
We are. Yeah.
And then I heard that they still don't know what happened to those homeless. Gavin Newsom.
Oh, in San Francisco?
Yeah, they still don't know what happened to those homeless people.
Wow. Really?
Yes.
No one knows what happened to them. I know a lot of them. I saw, like, I was looking on Twitter, like the next day there was
Go back.
tents back. Like people were.
What?
Yeah.
Still not
It's not
there.
clean anymore. It's back to normal.
What?
You can't just listen to one person, Mom, on
No, but I'm
online
saying,
and they tell you something.
You said there's people back again there?
Yeah, I saw videos on Twitter. People were posting like, "Oh, we're back to normal here in San Francisco." Like,
The boss is gone.
yeah, like they swept them out from under. They
I think that
opened
was the whole
closet.
point of that.
Yeah,
That's those are new homeless.
yeah.
You're always going to have the people. What happened to these homeless? They're nowhere. Did
Yeah.
you look? Are you in the city?
Right.
No, but they haven't said anything about it.
All right, so the title of the episode is A Glitch in the Matrix because, like we said, when this thing first popped off between Israel and Palestine, this has been one of the most, like, turning everything on its head moments I think, of the last decade or so that we've ever seen. Like everything that everyone's.
Can we show the other thing first?
What other thing?
The scriptures that were found.
Oh, you want to show that first?
Yeah, just because to get that out the way. Then we can
Okay.
talk about-
Okay.
Because that was kind of cool, man.
Okay. Scriptures that were found. Let's get to it.
So this video is about in Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
This guy found, in a kind of peculiar way, found stuff from the first temple period,
Okay.
right? Which is roughly between 700 to 500 years before Christ.
Okay.
That's far, right? So that's 2,500 years ago, 2,700 years. Yeah, 2,700 years ago.
Okay.
So it's pretty, and just, well, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Just show it.
Hold on. Let me bring this back up. Come on.
Yeah, but for the simple fact that, like, we have documents that back up this Bible we got right now, you know? And there's a lot more. Of course, there's stuff that's, like, you have the Dead Sea Scrolls and stuff like that. But just to see that and to see how far that goes back, dude, that's, to me, that's amazing.
And no other religion has that.
No?
Let's play this.
Volunteers that year were a group of children from an archaeological club. And one of them was a young boy named Nathan, who, it seems, had a particular talent in annoying Dr. Barkai.
We worked here with children. Among them, there was a kid who was especially a nagging type. He had the ugly habit of always pulling my shirt from behind, and when I would turn around, he would ask me a silly question. I looked into the repository and saw that the floor is visible. I said to myself, well, it is looted as all the other repositories in the other caves, but I had an idea. This is the place to put little Nathan. I thought that for a while I'm not going to see him, and that's an advantage. So he was asked to clean the place and prepare it for photography. He was alone, he was bored, he had lots of equipment with him, and not half an hour passed that I was far away, and I feel my shirt being pulled from behind. When I turned around, I see him standing with two pottery vessels in his hands. In any case, we came back, and I found out that he made the discovery of my life.
So here's what happened. At some point in the ancient past, possibly through an earthquake, the ceiling of the repository chamber had collapsed down and formed a false floor that sealed off the valuable contents of the chamber. And so this tricked the tomb robbers who came in and thought that there was nothing valuable in this chamber. And then later, it also tricked the archaeologists. And so it remained this way until Nathan came into the tomb with his tools and doing what boys do. He ended up punching a hole in the false floor. So I can only imagine what must have been going through his mind when he looked down through this hole and saw all these intact pottery vessels.
All right, so real quick, just so we can get comprehend the craziness of this. So, so what these repositories or I think that's what they're called, right? Repositories. What it is it's a tomb, right? And in Judaism, you would have these tombs, kind of like Jesus, but these are way more ancient than Jesus. They would have places where they would lay, right? So with this one, what happened over time was, if you go back a little bit, you can see the top of it. That's where people would lay the people. That was the top of it, but then it was actually covered. That was a tomb too, but because they would.
What?
So you see the top of that?
The top here.
That was where they would lay the people, right? At the very top of that part. And then they would place things inside.
Okay.
Right? But what happened was, over time, these things got covered over, and they would like do stonework. So it would cut away at the top of these tombs. Because eventually when these people would die and then their bodies would what's the decay. They would take the bones and put the bones in the repository. Okay. So then the bones would go there. So they would no longer be at the top. They would go in. So whoever would die, they would lay them there, you know, kind of like Jesus laid in the tomb, right? But then when they would decay, they would put the bones inside, right?
Okay.
That's just what it would be, like family tombs, right? And
so the whole family's bones would be piled up in here?
They would be put in like they would be stored in
Like a mausoleum?
in certain things. I don't know what you call them.
Vessels?
Vessels, yeah.
Okay.
And I think they said they found like 95 different bones or something in
Okay.
there. But also they would leave like things that they had, you know, that were important to them.
Yeah, right.
That they would want to die with or whatever. So with this one, usually they would have robbers, tomb robbers that would come in. But
Looking for like gold and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
but with this one, what kept it was that the floor, the top collapsed and it made a floor. It looked like a floor. So
Right.
if robbers would come in, it looked like there was nothing there.
Right.
But really, it was covering what was really there. So I was just thinking, it's so interesting that how God works to keep things right and cover things, but also who finds it? A child.
A child, right.
Ain't that crazy?
Because other researchers came in and didn't think to go through the floor either.
Right.
Right.
That's what he said. He was
Yeah.
like, when he saw it, he thought that that robbers had already come in here and taken everything.
Right.
So he just had that kid because he was annoying him.
So he had him going there to waste his time.
Yeah.
Like, just go in there and
Clean
dig
it up.
around. Yeah.
No, he was like, clean it up. As
Yeah.
he was cleaning, he broke the floor and found what this guy was trying to find his whole life.
Right. Right. That's interesting. Okay.
Nathan came into the tomb with his tools and doing what boys do. He ended up punching a hole in the false floor. So I can only imagine what must have been going through his mind when he looked down through this hole and saw all these intact pottery vessels.
And that is when little Nathan came in and began his destructive activity, which led to the discovery that the layer of rock, which I thought to be the floor, actually was not the floor, but a layer that got unpeeled or exfoliated from the ceiling, and it buried underneath it the very rich contents of this repository.
And so amazingly, Dr. Barkai got what he'd hoped for, what he'd dreamed of, and that is the discovery of a tomb chamber that had never been touched, that had never been robbed out in antiquity.
Inside this single chamber, we had more than 1,000 objects.
So then they started excavating the repository chamber. So we have this layer system within the repository chamber, with the layers at the bottom being the earliest and the layers at the top being the latest. So in the back of the repository chamber, down at the bottom layer, right next to the true rock floor, the excavators found two small metal objects. These two items were plaques of silver rolled up like scrolls. Essentially, they are two small silver scrolls.
It was a plaque of silver which was rolled around itself about 6 times, and when it was unrolled, it was showing to be covered densely with ancient Hebrew characters. It was inscribed 19 lines of writing in minuscule Hebrew characters. The first word which I deciphered at the opening was the name of the Lord. Yud Hey Vav Hey. This is the private name of God which appears whenever the English version has the word the Lord in the Hebrew Bible. This is the unpronounceable tetragrammaton, the secret name of God. Later on, we discovered that there are several more appearances of the name of the Lord on that piece of silver.
Not only was there Hebrew writing on these silver scrolls from Ketef Hinnom, but it was realized that what was written on them comes directly from the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament.
Both of them had versions of the priestly benediction, which is mentioned in the book of Numbers, chapter 6, verses 24 to 26.
The first silver scroll reads, "Bless you, Yahweh, and keep you. May Yahweh shine his face upon you and be gracious to you." And the smaller scroll is translated, "Bless you, Yahweh, and keep you. May shine Yahweh his face upon you and give you peace."
And more than that, the burial customs and the comparative material you have is very clearly evident of First Temple period, beyond any doubt.
The history of Jerusalem is often broken into two time periods, the First Temple period and the Second Temple period. The First Temple period begins when Solomon builds the temple in Jerusalem in the 10th century BC, and it's destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BC, which brings the First Temple period to an end. The Second Temple period begins when Zerubbabel rebuilds the temple in Jerusalem, and it is destroyed by the Romans in AD 70. So the Hebrew in the Second Temple period looks different than the earlier Hebrew that's used in the First Temple period. So if we use the name Yahweh as an example, in the Hebrew of the Second Temple period, God's name looks like this. But on the silver scrolls from Ketef Hinnom, it looks like this. The difference is a later form of Hebrew used in the Second Temple period, where the Hebrew found at Ketef Hinnom is an earlier form from the First Temple period. And so this is why the silver scrolls are dated to the First Temple period, and more specifically to the 7th century BC.
This discovery is of the earliest biblical verses ever discovered. They predate the very famous Dead Sea Scrolls by several centuries. So these are the earliest biblical verses. They date back to the 7th century BC, to the time of Prophet Jeremiah, to the time of the Davidic dynasty, to the time that the first temple of Solomon was still standing in Jerusalem.
From a Jewish point of view, we don't.
Wow.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, when did this happen?
When did they discover this? Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think it was about a year ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I might be wrong though. Might have been a few years ago. But yeah, I think this kind of stuff, like, there's so much of this stuff. You know, obviously this is set apart because it's so ancient, right? But there's so much of this stuff that just prove the authenticity of at least the text.
Yeah.
Right. So when people say, "Oh man, I don't trust the Bible. The Bible's corrupted. I don't trust," like, you heard that on the internet, and you're not being. You listen to things that you heard from somebody else, but you have to do research.
Yeah.
When you look at the Gospels, there's there's thousands of Gospels. Of the same type of Gospels, right?
Yeah.
That historically, more than any king, more than any Caesar, right? There's more stuff on Jesus than there is on Alexander the Great.
Right.
Like, so the fact that we want to act like we know everything about Alexander the Great, and there's more on Jesus, way more than any of these historical figures that we learn about in history.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting how, but we want to act like Jesus is somehow. Well, we don't even know if he really happened. We don't even know if it was it really real?
Yeah.
You know, or somehow it was corrupted.
Yeah.
Right. These things don't make sense when you look at them just from a historical standpoint. You know, even in terms of other people mentioning Jesus, other people mentioning this sect of Jews that came out of Jesus. Like, this stuff, it's not like it's historically, it's not contested. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just thought that stuff was
That is interesting. I had no idea that because, you know, we always go to the Dead Sea Scrolls as like the earliest discovery because it was so ancient. And so this is like you said, by a couple centuries, this trumps that. So
yeah,
that's interesting. And then they were on silver tablets. That's interesting.
Yeah, silver. Yeah. And then think about how, if it was something that was it was a silver scroll.
Yeah.
So just think about the purity of that silver to be able to
bend it like that. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Not only that, but it's like, if you really, because a lot of our lessons and our teachings in terms of like the public school education and just society in general kind of dismiss the ancient world of how information was spread.
Yeah.
Because when you think of like other societies, there are societies like the Aboriginals, the Mayans, or other groups of people who have very similar flood-like stories.
Yeah,
they're just named. The caricatures are named different in their language. Right. But China has it. India has it.
Yeah.
You know, these are far-flung places.
Yeah.
That have very similar. So the archetype story of the Bible, where people say it's just a story written by man.
Yeah.
No other book shares this much similarities, where we can go to Australia, we can go to Aborigines, we can go to the Mayans, or we could go wherever, and we could find similar story about Buddha, about Krishna, about whatever, you know what I mean? But because it's been suppressed, that there's sort of no value to Christianity. It's been taken away to make it look like this is just a man-made thing. That's why people always say, but it's a book written by man.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
To dismiss it.
When we are so when we have so much of something around, it loses its value. In terms of, people take it for granted.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, like, there's been so much study done on this. There's so much proof, but then people won't be satisfied with that, and they don't even know because they don't care, because they just hear these things that they've heard, right?
And it justifies their own desire to be right in what they believe.
Yeah. Or they've been so familiar with Christianity, or in the West especially, right? Christianity or Jesus or the Bible, just saying the Bible, right? That they take it for granted.
Yeah.
And most people are talking about it, but they never even read it.
Yeah.
You know.
And I have to wonder, why is there such an effort to dispute Christianity over everything else?
Right.
You know?
Everyone else is allowed to believe what they want to believe.
Everyone's allowed to, but that specific, especially Jesus Christ, especially that, like there's an effort, and the effort what I'm talking about is from the scholastic university setting,
right? The higher
education setting. This has been their number one goal. They don't try to disprove Krishna, Buddha, all the other
or Muhammad,
or Muhammad. They don't try to, but for specifically Christian.
Yeah,
this is what they all want to disprove. You know what I mean? Like, and it's been going on. In fact, from the days of Charles Darwin, there were universities handing out grants. To basically find the missing link to disprove the theory. So a lot of the quote unquote missing links were bones.
They were fabricated.
So you have bones of whatever ancient man they found pieced together with bones 2 miles away.
Right.
But it was these prize and these sort of like big money grants to sort of piece this theory together to make it true, to disprove Christianity. No other religion, no other belief system has been attacked on this level as Christianity has.
Do you think it has something to do with how Christianity is the most far spread religion in the world, and it was an actual world power at a certain point? When you look at like with the Vatican, the power that the power that the Pope had, just even like empirically with, you know, when you look at the whole European kingdom, like most of them were under the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
So like, do you think that could be a way to discredit their power in a sense, like that maybe that is why there was such a push to discredit Christianity?
I think that's a big part of it, but I think the belief in Jesus Christ is the most transformative thing for inner man, for self. And I think when you've submitted to Christ and you've transformed, I think a lot of people tend to, when you've surrendered your life to God, there's a transformation in you, and all things have passed away. But I think when you look at Christianity from that standpoint, the people who want to control ideas and thoughts know that when a man is transformed,
you're not as useful to them,
and you're not a vessel for them to use. You know, so think about it right now, right? Look at the attack on fatherhood, especially with men. This modern society, right? You know, the post-feminist movement, the drug, the sexual revolution, the war on drugs, all the stuff. They knew there was a collective. There's enough research to show that the lack of fathers in homes have destroyed that. So the transformative nature of God, when you accept Jesus Christ, your Lord and Savior, and you transform, you want to be a good husband, you want to be a good father. They know that you're not useful to those plots.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think a lot of times they come so hard for that because they know when a man is truly transformed, those things don't attract them no more.
I think it's both though, because you can't even do that without having a place to stand, having a hold, having a grip on somebody, and you can't have a grip on somebody if they don't give you that grip. Like you can't use a weapon that you can't grip, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people, like we talk about church hurt now, but church hurt happened back then, right? So many people grew up in churches, like, and where there's people who hurt people, and there's people who grow up in this. Again, they're used to it. Like, you're not a Christian, you're not a believer or follower in Jesus because you grew up in a Christian household. You have to make that choice for yourself.
Right.
But if you think a lot, like now people think I'm Christian.
Yeah.
Like my family's Christian. No,
We were just talking about how Cam Newton,
Right.
or even what's his name, Charleston White.
Yeah.
They'll say, I believe in Christ, or I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
Right. You can just say anyone can say that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But you see it in their hurt, and then it goes to the point where, well, I want to destroy everything all the stuff I grew up in. Like, you're not gonna go so hard against something. Think about
isn't that Charles Darwin's story?
Yes.
Yeah.
Charles Darwin, Bill Maher. Like, think about Bill Maher.
Yeah.
Like, you don't go so hard against something, warring against something, unless you have passion.
Right.
Right. And a lot of that passion has to do with hurt.
Yeah.
So
he was actually a theology major, Charles Darwin.
Yeah.
And I think
the death of his child, right?
Yeah. And people who have that hurt are used.
Yeah.
So, like, going back to what James said, like, there are people who could care less about these. There's a lot of people who are in power. They really could care less about God. They want to use these things against other people, right? And they're looking for people that they can use.
Right.
People you can use are people who are emotionally unstable, right? Or the people who are hurt.
Right.
And so when you don't have when you don't have self-control, when you in an area, when you have vulnerability in an area, right? How do you deal with that vulnerability? You lash out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's what's happening a lot. Charles Darwin's book that everybody that's a lashing out.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Like when people don't even like his whole book, like it's an attack on God.
Yeah.
Like the whole when you look at the whole thing.
And it was also designed to prove how white people were the favored race.
I was gonna say that. That was
Like,
my next thing I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Which it shows you like none of these things make any sense.
Yeah.
You know, like, and what we're gonna go into next is talking about partiality, right? And I think if you look at Hitler, the whole thing with Hitler and a lot of the Nazi mentality against the Jews was, oh, you're not the chosen people. Oh, you think you're the chosen people.
Right.
I think even like think about that mentality of, oh, you think you're favored by God, right? That's a partiality. Think about kids think about parents with their kids and how kids with their parents are like, well, that's not fair. You gave Jamie this thing, and I'm like, as you're my brother, it's not fair that Jamie gets this, but I don't get that. I have to do this, right? But when you look at it from that standpoint, now I have to snuff out I have to make it make sense to me that you're really not worth anything. And then I twist the things instead of going to my parents. Well, why did you do that for him and not me? And then they tell, because I see him responsible in this way. I see him doing this. I do this for you because I see you working in this way. Like,
it's interesting, like, and Jordan Peterson always does a great job of like breaking down how the Bible is. These archetypical stories are all throughout it, and what you're describing is the Cain and Abel story,
right? Exactly.
It's the one son feeling like the other son is favored over him. So what does he have to do? I have to kill him now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I have to justify myself by killing him and putting him in his place, even though he wasn't really favored. You just you didn't obey when God what you didn't do what God asked you to do.
Yeah, you let God rejecting what you did got in the way of thinking God rejected you.
Right.
And that's what we do. We think we're rejected, right? And that's where bitterness actually comes in, especially with between the relationship between a father and son.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we do as children of God. Right? In terms of how we view God, we feel rejected.
Yeah. Let me read Jeffrey's comment right here. He says Darwin's book Origins of the Species was definitely what you say, a lashing out after the epic of the Dark Ages and the Renaissance won anything other than the biblical narrative. But you got to say the whole name, because people always stop there. Origins of the species.
And the preservation of the favored races.
Boom. That's the rest of the title.
They changed it.
Yeah.
Because they knew it was a book to prove that white people were superior. I mean, it's to disprove the God, but he was also elevating himself,
right?
Which he belongs to that.
Origins of species and the preservation of the favored races, right?
But look at what's in the title, favored.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Right.
Favored. That's the point.
Mm-hmm.
It's who's favored,
yeah.
right? And this is what Hitler, all these things. This is what genetics, like they're all who's favored.
Eugenics, you mean?
And which is very moronic of him because although he's saying preservation of the favored race and genetic survival of the fittest, his son dies because of inbreeding.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because of genetic defect. You know what I mean? Which is one of the commandments.
Right.
You know, don't do that after. You know what I mean? So it's like he's saying something, but it's like he disproves himself right there.
That's how it always goes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wanted to make this point real quick as Jake was talking about the father's love. I recently rewatched Boys in the Hood, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about a father's love. You remember the character of Lawrence Fishburne?
Yes.
Right?
The teacher.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, his son is growing up in this environment and his dad is trying to raise him. Mm-hmm. But there was something important in that movie was when he saw his son going down this path, he was trying to plead with him about he was in the scene, he was basically saying, give me the gun.
Yeah.
And he understood how his son felt.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. But his son disobeyed him anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But while they were driving, I remember this sort of orchestral music as they're in the convertible going to do what they had to do.
Right.
And he said, man, stop the car. And I think the Doughboy's the character, Ice Cube's character, let him out.
Yep.
Because there was a conviction that was happening in him.
Right.
There was a battle. Though he wanted to go get revenge for his friend that got killed, the father's love resonated with him that this is not going to do nothing. You know what I'm saying?
That's a great point. So just that one conversation with
just
his
one
father
conversation
changed the trajectory.
And he's
of his
driving.
life.
The scene shows them driving, them going, and you could see everybody's quiet in the car. Mm-hmm. They're not talking about what they're gonna do. They're just quiet. And he's around. Now the ominous music is playing, but the thoughts of his dad telling him, "You're gonna waste your life. Mm-hmm. You're gonna destroy your life." You know, I understand how you feel. I've been here, but this is not gonna lead to nothing. Mm-hmm. And he says to him, "Man, stop the car." And he looks back at him. Ice Cube's character looks back at him, and they pull over and let him out. And he goes home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that's what Jake's was talking about, the father's love. Mm-hmm. Because without that conviction of the father in his heart to change him from,
what's going to stop him?
What's going to stop him?
He's going to go based off of emotion.
Right. And to tie that back to what we were talking about Christianity, there is, if you pray and you ask God, that conviction in your heart is what quickens your spirit from making those choices. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I think from the worldly aspect is to attack us, is to attack anybody who shares those beliefs, because then they can't use you.
Yeah.
Because the quickening of your spirit comes from that inner connection that you have with God.
Yo, great point. So what we're going to get into is the partiality, and like I was setting up before, is like the amount of things that this conflict is exposing in people. Exposing in our political system, exposing in the hypocrisy of like what people claim they stand for is amazing.
That's a big one.
It's amazing. We talked about that before on here, but with some of the stuff that we're going to play right now is going to get into that. The first thing I want to play is that thing I sent you guys where those heads of the universities were being questioned by Congress. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you watched this.
I haven't seen it, but
okay. So, to me, it was like such a clear example of how these once you dig your feet into an ideology, and that ideology starts to disalign with what you say you believe in. It's too late for you to go back on that. You have to you know, you have to stand with that, what you originally said. So this is there was 3 Ivy League schools, MIT, UPenn, and what was the third one? I can't remember. But they were it might have been Harvard. Yeah, Harvard. They were talking they were being questioned about their policies because, you know, people have been protesting at the campuses, talking about, you know, basically calling for genocide against Israel, you know. So they were being asked about that, like, because one thing that we know for sure is that on these college campuses, if you say certain things, they have these policies in place that's hate speech, or that's grounds for expulsion. If you there's fat phobia, there's homophobia, there's transphobia, there's if you talk about Black Lives Matter, any of these things,
woke culture gone amok.
Woke culture is gone amok on college campuses. You can't say anything offensive about anybody.
And the comedians have said this too.
Right.
They won't even go in them.
Right. So, but when it comes to this, because the ideology doesn't want to align, the ideology tells them the woke ideology has to support Palestine. So when these people are on campus protesting and saying horrible things about Israel,
what do we do?
Now we have to have a little more nuance. You know what I mean? So let's take a look at these what their statements were.
At MIT, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate MIT's code of conduct or rules regarding bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
If targeted at individuals, not making public statements.
Yes or no? Calling for the genocide of Jews does not constitute bullying and harassment?
I have not heard calling for the genocide for Jews on our campus.
But you've heard chants for intifada.
I've heard chants, which can be anti-Semitic depending on the context, when calling for the elimination of the Jewish people.
You see how much more wait a minute, we got to get technical on these things now. So
they always do that.
Yeah, it's like for this topic, you know, I have heard calls for these things, but you know, unless it turns into violence, you know, but I thought words were violence.
Right.
I thought silence was violence. You know what I mean? So
2 years ago it was.
Right. But for this, you know, we got to have more nuance. Let's keep going.
So those would not be according to the MIT's code of conduct or rules?
That would be investigated as harassment if pervasive and severe.
Ms. McGill, at Penn, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's rules or code of conduct? Yes or no?
If the speech turns into conduct, it can be harassment. Yes.
I am asking.
You see how even the look on her face, she cannot answer that yes or no. Like, think about just imagine if she said, if calling for the genocide of trans people happened at UPenn.
Yes.
Exactly. This is ridiculous. We would never tolerate, you know what I mean? Name any other group.
Well, because the God, the woke God, that's what they're trying to prop up here.
Right.
You know what I mean? More than ever. So this is double talk, you know, pedal back.
Right.
If it means, you know, they're trained, these our college spokesperson, whether they're the presidents, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. These are jargon that they're trained to sort of like walk around these particular. They don't want to answer it.
Well, they don't want to answer it because they also know that they're going to have to answer to the people that they say they align with on the woke side of things. Because think about it: how many college professors did we see getting fired, or how many people threatened to pull funding from these universities because people were tweeting out stuff in support of Hamas?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? From these universities. So you know they're being faced with this conundrum now, where it's like, wait, we're supposed to. Our ideology says we're supposed to back Hamas.
Which, in a way, don't you think it exposes the whole donation funding?
Absolutely.
Because it exposes that, because then, so anybody who funds you, they get to...
They have a say over, what you...
Whether right or wrong.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if they were getting more funding from Palestinians, they wouldn't care. They wouldn't care.
Right.
Yeah, let's keep going. So she can't answer either, of course.
Specifically calling for the genocide of Jews, does that constitute bullying or harassment?
If it is directed and severe or pervasive, it is harassment.
So the answer is yes.
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman.
It's a context-dependent decision. That's your testimony today. Calling for the genocide of Jews is depending upon the context.
Bro, that is crazy that they can't say yes to genocide, to saying that if you call for the genocide of, like, how come she couldn't even spend that to calling for the genocide of anyone is against our policy? Don't even give her that win of saying, if you don't want to say the Jews and you don't want to give her that win, just say we don't agree with calling the genocide of anyone.
Yeah,
anyone. She can't even say that because even that would be in support of Israel, and they can't do it.
That is not bullying or harassment. This is the easiest question to answer. Yes, Ms. McGill. So is your testimony that you will not answer yes?
If it if the
yes
speech
or
becomes
no?
if the speech becomes conduct, it can be harassment. Yes.
Conduct meaning committing the act of genocide? The speech is not harassment? This is unacceptable, Ms. McGill. I'm going to give you one more opportunity for the world to see your answer. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's code of conduct when it comes to bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
Look at that.
It can be harassment.
The answer is yes.
She can't
and
say
Dr.
it.
Gay,
She can't
at
say it.
Harvard, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be, depending on the context.
What's the context?
Targeted as an individual, at an individual.
It's
severe,
targeted at
pervasive.
Jewish students, Jewish individuals. Do you understand your testimony is dehumanizing them? Do you understand that dehumanization is part of anti-Semitism? I will ask you one more time. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric. When
And is it
crosses into
anti-Semitic rhetoric?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric, when it crosses into conduct that amounts to bullying, harassment, intimidation, that is actionable conduct, and we do take action.
So the
This reminds me of the news, like when all the reporters say
Right.
the same thing.
Right.
This reminds me of that.
But like she said, this is the easiest question to answer.
Right.
You're talking about genocide of an entire people.
This is freedom of speech 101.
Yeah.
This is constitutional stuff.
Right.
That is basic. Like, this is the First Amendment.
Well, this is the thing. If you want to make this is why they can't make the argument that we are for freedom of speech, so we can't enforce those rules because speech, can't be, you can't enforce rules against people's speech. If people call for the genocide of Jews, that's their freedom of speech.
No, but that's not freedom of speech because you can't freedom of speech unless it's leading to violence. Like, that's like,
well, you can't necessarily say that from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free is a direct call to violence. You can't say that directly, but it does infer that genocide again, because what that ultimately means is the genocide of Israel, right? But what I'm saying is they can't even take that stance because they know that that would be hypocrisy, because for the last 6 years we've been hearing about how if you say something that's fat phobic, that's violence.
Transphobic.
You know what I mean? Like, you can be kicked out of school. They don't believe in freedom of speech.
Yeah.
So they can't use that argument.
Right.
So that's why they're
But
in
only
this.
when it's
Exactly.
and it's extreme freedom of speech.
Right.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Right? It's not even constitutional freedom of speech.
Right.
It's extreme freedom of speech.
Absolutism.
Yeah.
Freedom of speech, absolutism.
Only when it's for people that they can get behind.
When it's people that are part of the woke club.
This is called partiality, guys.
Exactly. And that's what we're getting at here. And how, like I said, this is flipping everything on its head, because we've been told for so long that the left is the woke people. The left people are the party of compassion, the party of just wanting to see everyone, against war, anti-war, anti-intervention, anti-genocide, it's all about stopping genocide. But for some reason, with this situation, they're okay with it.
Because it's not. It's anti-oppressor.
Right.
But the problem
It's
is...
a Marxist. It's a neo-Marxist ideology,
which they've been spreading through their campuses.
Exactly.
It's a demonic ideology.
Yeah.
To be blunt.
Right.
Because if you make God the oppressor, right?
Right.
That's the point. If you make whoever you make the oppressor, and it's easy to do that.
Yeah.
You can make Israel an oppressor. You can make whoever you want your oppressor. You can make your parents your oppressor.
Yeah.
And the moment you villainize them, all you got to do, I said this today, like I had this revelation today when I was talking to you guys about a situation. And I said, it's so interesting how, and I was talking about Christians, right? It's so interesting how people can come together and war together, even in prayer, right?
Yeah.
People can come together and war together. But the moment they got to love each other,
they can't do it.
Division comes in,
Yeah.
right? They're divided on that.
Yeah, I know. That's sad. Actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't love each other.
But people talk about that even like out of the Christian context. We can come together. What is they call it? Trauma bonding, right? Where we can come together and we can unite on our victimhood.
Yeah.
You know, we can unite on that thing. But the minute we have to love each other outside of that victimhood, it all falls apart.
Yeah. Especially when the trauma is over.
Yeah.
And now we actually have to love each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's funny because Thera said it earlier, Peter Pan, and like that's the church of Peter Pan in my opinion. Like that's Peter means rock, right?
Right.
On
Right.
this rock I built my church. So
And Pan is
what does Pan mean?
Pan is the god of
it's a shepherd god in a way, right?
It's like the half man, half goat,
But
I think.
Yeah, and it leads people. It leads children to their death.
Right.
It leads
By playing
people.
a flute.
Pan's Labyrinth.
It leads them into a wilderness.
Right. And where was Pan's Labyrinth located?
Caesarea
Right.
Philippi.
Right. And that wasn't there?
That was where Jesus said, "And the gates of hell won't prevail." against it."
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I was getting.
Yeah.
at.
So it's an inverted church. It's the opposite, right? And so Peter Pan, you think about that, like you never grow up. But it's you never grow up, so you stay in your trauma. You stay as a child that's been wounded.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. You said something trauma bonding.
That's one of these neo pseudo psychological phrases that people use all the time.
Yeah.
Where it's like, we can't trauma bond. Where people, and this is a real thing people do, where they unite over their victimhood status, or they unite over. Like, you ever see people who become friends because they don't like one person, and their friendship is all based around talking crap on one person.
Yeah. I mean, I see it with the manosphere.
Yeah.
I see it with women.
That's a great point.
How many times do women become friends because they were both
cheated on,
done wrong by the same guy?
Yep.
Right, Mom?
Why are you saying that?
Because you with Dad and Andy, remember? Like,
Oh, you mean that I became friends with Andy?
yeah.
Oh, that's only because she.
No, but that backfired on you, right? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was based off of the wrong thing. That's what I'm saying. It's just like women will do that quicker, right?
Do you mean the trauma bonding thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's keep going on this though, because I want to show this article. So immediately after that, the next day, the UPenn chairwoman apologized, the president, Elizabeth Magel, and then this story came out. If you could pull this up, Mom, this is from the New York Times. Penn's leadership resigns amid controversies over anti-Semitism.
When did this happen, by the way? I'm sorry. The hearing.
It was a few days ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the
I think it
backlash
was
swift.
It was very swift.
Last week.
This was last week. This article came out December 11th. So yesterday.
I saw the one with the black woman. She offered apology too, correct?
She offered an apology, but now, guess what? They dug up a whole scandal about her and found out that her entire dissertation thesis paper was plagiarized.
Ooh.
So they
couldn't
found
say yes or no.
These are Ivy League schools, guys.
Yeah.
These are...
Well, Harvard is the school of the schools.
Right.
That's
but I'm
where,
saying, like, Penn is an Ivy League school.
Yeah, absolutely. These are all MIT.
Yeah.
So this woman resigned, and so did the chairman of the board of trustees, Scott Bach. They both resigned under, it says, intense pressure from donors, politicians, and alumni. You know, so you know what that means. But then I want to show y'all this. So Saturday Night Live does a sketch about this hearing. Starts the entire show with a sketch about this hearing. Who do you think they made fun of?
The woman asking the question.
Exactly. They made fun of the woman asking the questions and act like the people answering the questions did nothing wrong. I'll play a little bit of it here. Just I don't want to play too much because we'll get copyright struck.
Now I'll turn it over to mega superstar Elise Stefanik from New York, who's been pacing the hallways listening to Lose Yourself by Eminem. Miss Stefanik.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Now, I'm going to start screaming questions at these women like I'm Billy Eichner. Anti-Semitism, yay or nay?
I'm sorry, what?
Yes or no is calling for the genocide of Jews against the Code of Conduct for Harvard.
Like, bro, this is not even good sketch comedy.
Right, it's not even funny.
It's horrible. And then, like, you're mocking this woman while asking about genocide of Jews.
Holding people accountable.
Right? Like, yo, they're mocking the way she asked, is genocide, calling for genocide wrong or right?
Yeah, how is this funny?
And then,
Well, it depends on the context.
What? That can't be your answer, you pen lady. Same question, yes or no?
Well, we are serious about stopping all forms of hatred, anti-Semitism.
she didn't say that. She didn't say that at all.
Islamophobia.
The second one, MIT lady, chance to steal. And keep in mind, if you don't say yes, you're going to make me look good, which is really, really hard to do. So I'll ask you straight up. Do you think genocide is bad?
Could I submit an answer in writing at a later date?
Am I winning this hearing?
Yeah, so you get the idea. I don't want to play too much of it, but
Yeah.
bro,
Stupid.
they literally mocked the one asking the question and tried to make the other ones look like the reasonable people in the room.
Which of some of the answers wouldn't even
weren't what they said. This is like what I'm talking about. Like, so much is being exposed. So much people are now calling for them to have to apologize for this sketch because it's like, this is obviously
it's a terrible sketch. Apologize for that.
Yeah, apologize for how not funny this is.
But again, partiality, it leaves you so blind.
Right.
It blinds you because you're so focused on this one thing that you miss everything around you. You can't see it.
Absolutely.
So then when somebody brings it up, you're so thrown off because you missed it.
Yeah.
Right. So now if you're in your pride, you got to save face.
Yeah.
And most of the time, that's what we are, because you think you're so gung ho for the right thing to do. Right.
And that's one of the things that I hate about these situations, and that I brought up when this first happened, is that I just see another opportunity for a binary to be set up for people to choose one side or the other. And it's like, if you don't choose this side or that side, then again, you're not useful to us. So we have to demonize you. You're either anti-Semitic or you're, anti, or you're Islamophobic, or, whatever. They come up with a term. If you want to be more nuanced on this and be like, wait, I don't want to take either side on this thing. They're gonna call you both. You know what I'm saying? You care about. You don't care about the slaughtering of children. You don't care about the slaughtering of Jews. Like, no, that's not the case. It's just that this thing is not as simple as everyone's trying to make it, and it's not as easy to just say, well, I'm on this side or that side.
Right.
So then let's go to the other side of things. Let's go to the other side of things where we're talking about partiality. We're talking about people being exposed for not aligning with what they say they believe in, and people getting overly emotional because they're attached to this thing in different ways. So this is a clip of Ben Shapiro basically cheering for hiring quotas, which is something that he has spoken out time and time against, especially for when you think of affirmative action. Yeah. So let's let this ad play.
Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. So this is one where we just
can't look away, because the flip on a dime from saying things like affirmative action is bad to now instituting straight up Jewish quotas is now taken a mere 24 hours. Here's Palantir. This is a company that has security software. They license the CIA to a lot of other financial institutions and all of that. They say, we at Palantir have been committed, and let's please leave this up, to defending the principles that make democratic rule possible since our founding 2 decades ago. Our software embodies our values and commitments. We believe these values must be backed up by actions. So they say students on campuses are terrified and have been instructed by administrators to hide their Judaism. I do not believe that that has literally ever happened. They say we are launching an initiative for students who, because of anti-Semitism, fear for their safety on campus and need to seek refuge outside traditional establishments of higher education. They are welcome to join Palantir, and we are setting aside 180 positions for them immediately. More details to follow. So there's a lot going on here. One is that this is a straight up quota. There's no other way to describe it. This is a quota for Jews at an American company. Someone might want to tell them that that violates the most basic practices of hiring and of discrimination, regardless of whether it's applied to blacks or whether it's applied to Jews. And I've definitely criticized it whenever I've seen it in that direction. And I probably, look, I don't know all the people behind Palantir. I only know one person.
Okay, we get the idea. So he goes on to talk about how Ben Shapiro tweeted out this plan to have this hiring quota for Jews, and he said, "I love it." He's all for it. And a lot of people showed the hypocrisy there, because it was like, how many times have we heard him come out and talk about how it's against the Constitution for affirmative action? Having these hiring quotas are wrong. They don't do anything. But somehow, when you become emotionally attached to something, you can back out on those things you say you stand for. We saw this also with a lot of the censorship that people have been calling for. I spoke about how Dave Rubin's been talking about how people shouldn't be allowed to speak on TV, when he's one of the people always talking about the First Amendment and how you got to let people speak and say what they believe so that you know where they stand. But for some reason, when people are coming on TV and spreading what you believe is misinformation about what's going on over there, they need to be censored. So which one is it?
Yeah.
Are you for free speech, or are you only for free speech when it benefits you, or when it's targeted towards you?
Yeah.
When the censorship is targeted towards you. So I thought this story was interesting. You sent this to us. Like, what do you guys think about this? And I think this is just another example of how you're starting to see how these people that people listen to because they think that they're these advocates for certain things, you start realizing like they're really only advocates for themselves.
Yeah. Right. And I think freedom isn't free. I said this to you before, right?
Yeah.
Freedom isn't free. It costs you something.
Yep.
You can't think that you're not going to have to go through something. Why do they have to run and go to some other place? Right?
Yeah.
If you're having issues, then stand in your freedom, right?
Yeah.
You have to exercise your rights so that people understand. If you don't, we talked about this last week. If you don't exercise your rights, how are people going to know the law? And that's something that we as believers have to do. We're called to. You gotta pay the cost.
Yeah.
You can't be set free if you don't trust God.
Yeah.
And to trust God, you got to do things that you're not comfortable with doing sometimes, right? You got to pay the cost.
Yep.
You got to die with God. You got to die with Christ. So you see that this nature that's different than everything else, right? You see the nature of Christ that's different from, because you're seeing people playing to one side and then people playing to the other side, and then the partiality that's happening. But true justice and true judgment, like, how can you truly judge or discern a situation if you're partial? You can't, right?
Right.
So that's why God, he's showing us, like, if we want to see it, he's showing us, are you going to pick a side? Or are you going to choose to follow me? Because if you choose to follow me, I'll raise you up in my freedom, right? Who the Son sets free is free indeed.
Right.
But you got to make that choice. It's funny how he's talking about servants, right? he talks about your slaves to sin in that same area in John 8. But when you're a slave or a servant, he says that the son, the slave doesn't always remain in the house, or the servant, right?
Mhm.
But the son does.
Right.
So God wants us to know that we're not just servants, we're sons,
Mhm.
right? Servants got an inheritance. Sons got an inheritance.
Yeah.
Servants don't.
Yeah.
When you can do all the things you do, but it's not going to lead to anything, right?
Yeah.
You're just doing your work. It might lead to eventually, like, you don't got to be there anymore,
Mhm.
right? But the thing is with the son is everything you do is going to lead to you being or you having what he has, right?
Yeah.
What the father has or what the master has, right?
Mhm.
Which is your father.
Yeah.
So if you think about it in that way, you might not understand the things, but if I'm just doing it without, like, if I'm doing something and I think that my doing is going to get me freedom, or my doing is going to keep me safe,
Mhm.
it never will. Right. Most people think in that way. Like, every religion is in that way. Like, even Judaism in this stance,
Yeah.
the way it is now, right?
Right.
I'm not talking about the way it was.
Mhm.
I'm talking about the way it is now.
Mhm.
It's only about, well, if you do enough good things, right, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
Islam, if you do enough righteous things,
Mhm.
well, you'll be all right.
Right.
That's service.
Mhm.
But God calls us sons, right? So God teaches us to follow him, to be disciples, to be disciplined, to serve him,
Yeah.
right? And as we serve him, it doesn't feel good,
Mhm.
right? A servant who doesn't have sonship can do the things, but never has to care about why he's doing it.
Mhm.
Never has to take internal understanding of why we're doing this stuff.
Yeah.
Right? But a son does, because a son gets to question the father in terms of, in a hopeful way, like,
Right.
well, what are we doing this for? What's the meaning of this?
Right.
What's the reason for this?
Well, because the son has to take that into his future and pass that on to his kids as well.
Right.
Into his next generation. So there's more of a...
It becomes
Yeah.
a generational line.
Right.
Right. But with a servant, it's not.
It's not.
Right.
You're
Yeah.
just doing a job.
Yeah. And I think we think in terms of religion, our practices, and that's why they get lost. They're practices that are done, but then if there's no meaning,
Yeah.
then you lose the understanding. And people are like, why are we doing this? That's why in Iran, there's 50,000 mosques closing.
Right.
Because when you're so, when a law is beat on you so much,
Mhm.
a religion is beat on you so much, a law, right?
Yeah.
You start to not get the point.
Yeah. I mean, you see it in Christianity too.
Yeah.
You see it.
I was
Go
I
ahead.
was going to say this about, especially with conservatives, right? Which, when you hear the rhetoric of family life,
Mhm.
we're standing for family values, anti-abortion, which we agree with.
Mhm.
But there's no plan for, okay, so what if when the woman who says, you know what, you're right, I'm not going to abort this baby, I'm going to keep this baby.
Yeah.
What's your plan for the woman who decides, I agree with you, I don't want to murder this baby, I don't want
Mhm.
to kill this baby, I don't want to abort this baby. What's your plan for me helping me? Because the mistake I made, I acknowledge it.
Yeah.
The father's abandoned me. How do I raise this baby? And they have that's when crickets are heard.
Right.
Right? And I think sometimes that's the disconnection that people have
Mhm.
with conservatism, because you'll hear all the statistics, fatherless home, abortion, blah, blah. But okay, but now it's time for action. So what, and I'm not saying that the woman is specifically asking
Yeah.
for that, but if there is a plan set forth, what can we do? And I know that there's other agencies, Christian agencies, that do facilitate that, but you never hear that coming from the politician, which will
Right.
quote the numbers, i.e. Ben Shapiro,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Who will quote those numbers and
Right.
say, okay, yes, you're right.
Yeah.
But what's the plan?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that sometimes that could be the frustration with people who may be on the fence politically, whether conservative or liberal, but they don't hear enough they'll hear the talking points of the conservatives, which they agree with.
Yeah.
But then there's no plan.
Right.
Right.
So, and I think again, like this whole situation has exposed a lot about those conservative pundits that you're talking about, like a Ben Shapiro, because for so long we've seen him go to a college campus and obliterate some young black girl because he tells her, actually, the facts show that you're not a victim, and affirmative action is terrible on the economy because it does this and this and that, and freedom of speech and blah, blah, blah. But then as soon as it becomes
beneficial to
him, he's totally flipped on all of that.
Well, it's what he said. Facts don't care about your feelings,
right?
Like, but when you get emotional, you can't see straight,
right? Facts don't care about your feelings, but my feelings they care about.
Right.
That's what he's saying.
Like, and what Jake said, I think that, this is a time for anyone who's oppressed, especially in the Jews, to not want things too covetous mean, but want things because of the law. Go about it that way.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you don't want it. You don't want that kind of victory.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? So I think that a lot of times these sort of, I don't know if they call them radio show personalities. They're so emotionally driven that they kind of tell on themselves a little bit. You know what I mean?
And that's what's happening. That's what's happening. That's what we're seeing.
I think it's hard when you're from this old nature, right? When that's all you're used to. It's hard to not be partial to your family, to what's familiar.
It's actually normal.
Yeah.
And that's
right.
If people would just admit that I am
You
biased.
said that. You said it's in-group preference.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it per se, but then you can't go telling people
to not have in-group preference
because you're doing it.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with it until you get to the place of being an authority and a judge. Then there's being a king.
That's a good word.
Yeah.
Then there's something wrong with it because you're gonna be impartial.
Right.
I mean, you're gonna be partial.
Which is what's been happening politically and in terms of the justice system.
Yeah.
We see it all the time where these judges and high political officials are calling for law, but then when they break the law,
they don't want to be held accountable at all.
Yeah. When it's funny when James he talks about partiality, right? And he's talking about judgment, right? Because they're connected, obviously. But then he says later on, I think this is James 2, and he says that mercy triumphs over judgment, right? So it's about mercy, right? Another place, it says that God desires, and He doesn't desire sacrifice, but mercy, right? And even when you think about that, like how many people are like, they judge based off of what they've done. So you can't judge me because I've done this.
Yeah.
Or they look at themselves partially because of the things they've done, right? But when you measure, so what are we doing? We're measuring ourselves. We're judging ourselves, right? We're measuring. But when we realize, like, I haven't taken in account everything, right? And that's okay.
Yeah.
But then it leaves me in a place where I can't just judge this situation. It causes me to be more patient with people, right? To be more willing to hear what they're talking about, why they're where they are,
right?
Even though you're wrong. Like, I had a situation with a guy snapping on me in the car, right? And we were parked. Something happened. I'm not gonna go into the whole thing, but he was snapping, cursing me out, right? And I had to check myself and be patient with him. And in my patience, by the end, he opens up to me. By the end, he's telling me about stuff that happened in his childhood that was traumatizing him. This guy's older than me.
Yeah.
Right? But I had to check myself, right? I had to humble myself in the situation. I had to be merciful to him. I had to I could have been justified. Like, he was straight disrespecting me. Like, but I had to calmly deal with the situation. And in that, he was able to open up, right? Then he's telling me, well, this is why I see things the way I see things. This is why I snapped on you, and I'm sorry I shouldn't have snapped on you. But now he's telling me things that I would never have gotten out of him. Now I can see, oh, okay, I get that. I understand that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I can see where he's coming from more. There's more mercy there even from me, but I had to show it before I saw it. That's what's crazy. Like,
You had to humble yourself.
I had to humble myself and show him mercy before I actually saw where he was coming
And
from.
then justice came in, and that's where that verse, Micah 6:8.
Yeah.
What does the Lord require of you? To act justly,
Yes, let's-
love mercy, and walk humbly.
Yeah.
And that verse, man, lately that's been coming up a lot.
Yeah.
He's probably so used to people snapping on him. So when you did it, it probably threw him.
Yep.
To feel so comfortable to tell a stranger.
Exactly.
Because he's probably not used to used to someone giving him back to what he gives them.
Right.
Yeah.
I was gonna make this point real quick, about, you were saying about like, political ideologies, talking points, mindsets, right? Like we went 4 years ago where everyone was saying concerning Donald Trump, show your tax returns, you're not honest about your money.
Right.
And then I remember Joe Rogan speaking about Nancy Pelosi and a lot of Democrats who, let's say Nancy Pelosi's salary is what, like $200,000 a year? She is worth, I think, like at least
60 million.
Yeah, she's up there, right?
Yeah.
How does this happen?
Right.
And we can't question that when they're questioning somebody who is in the private sector, by the way.
Right.
He's never been a political official.
Right.
And this is sort of the when you bury your head in the sand politically, religiously, and certain things where you can't even have that discussion. So here she is questioning his financials, and no one can question her finances.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so as you begin to hear this through, and Joe Rogan is not a Christian or nothing like that, but you heard it through. I heard it through there, and I was like, wow, that is true. How many government officials are multimillionaires and have made lots of money?
Yeah.
During these recessions, pandemics, whatever.
Joe
it is.
Biden's one of them.
Joe Biden's one of them.
Yeah, and I think again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with people being indoctrinated into a binary. And if you're taught that, okay, orange man bad, you're never gonna question what the people telling you orange man bad
or
are
even
doing.
if you say rich people bad.
Right. Yeah,
You
rich
know?
people bad.
You're already
oppressor
gonna,
versus oppressed.
Yeah. You already judged. them.
Yeah.
Rich, bad,
Yeah.
oppressed.
Right.
That's it.
And I think, again, this Israel-Palestine thing has created that binary of oppressed and oppressor in a way where you're seeing people being indoctrinated into just believing that Israel is the oppressor, Palestine is the oppressed. We need to stand with them, and we need to...
Because that's what they've been pumping.
Right.
Yeah.
But then anyone who is Jewish is now a target. You know what I mean? Which is like because that totally goes against everything you say you stand for on the left as a woke person.
Yeah.
You know, I want to show this clip that you sent me of the people harassing wouldn't let the person use the bathroom. Pull this up, please, Mom. Yeah, this went viral too because it's like a lady comes into I think it's a coffee shop or something. Yeah. Oh, let me get this.
And these are the workers.
Also, currently, this is a private property.
I want to go into the restroom.
I do need you to leave.
I know Israel loves taking private property and saying it's their own, but we gotta head.
Look at these characters.
So she just listen to what he just said.
Yeah.
I know Israel loves
taking private property and using it for their own.
Yeah.
Like, okay, even if that is true, I have seen a lot of clips of that, of like people claiming that Israel will take Palestinian homes and give it to, like, just kick them out of their homes, use some type of like mandate, kick them out, and then give it to Jews that come there. This lady's not Israel. She's just a woman.
Yeah. She's Israeli, but she's just a woman.
But you're trying to connect her with like the Israeli government. Like that,
And he
to
don't,
me,
they're not even seeing like, what if they just connect you, dummy, as
to
an
America.
American? Right.
What if
to
somebody,
everything?
what
Like,
if when you go to the bathroom, I know America likes taking people's land and occupying it, but you can't occupy our bathroom.
Right.
Like,
I need you to leave.
I want you to go into the restroom.
I need you to leave, please.
I was patroned here, and I have a right to go into the restroom.
And we have a right to refuse service.
Yeah, but I need to go into the restroom.
I'm asking you to leave.
No, you need to let me go into the
No, we don't.
restroom.
I don't. I'm asking you to leave.
I'm a patron here, and
Okay.
I need to go to the restroom.
I'm kindly asking you to leave.
No, I'm not going to leave.
I'm kindly asking you to leave.
Okay?
Man, these people have the woke uniforms
I want to go
on.
into the restroom.
That's fine. You can use our restroom. We have a restroom next door. You can use
No,
our
I want to use
It's a
this one.
restroom.
There's a no.
We're
I
saying
should
no.
not be excluded and other people allowed.
They're saying no.
I want to go into
So these are people that are anti-discrimination, oppressor, let people use whatever bathroom they want. But they're not letting this woman. They're discriminating,
Dude, and they don't even see it.
They're discriminating against someone
because they're so blinded by that they have a right to do this.
Yeah.
They're so blinded.
What would be funny though is if she said, "I'm transgender." They're like, "Okay, go ahead."
Well, in that case,
get on in here.
Let's check our.
Why did you set up in the beginning?
Look, they pull out the scorecard, the index for oppression Olympics. They're like, okay, transgender. Does that trump Judaism? Right now, Israel is higher on the. We can't.
Should have said, "I'm trans Palestinian."
Yeah,
right this way. Why'd you set up in the beginning?
Yeah, because to be honest with you, all Israelis can say that.
Yeah,
you
they
know
can.
what I mean? Like
They can.
they can literally say that.
Yeah. So yeah, they go on to not let this woman use the bathroom.
So sad how there's no mercy at all for anything.
Yeah, and I mean, there's clips of, and I'm sure I've seen clips of Jewish people yelling at Palestinians, doing horrible things to them as well, or people holding Palestinian flags. I've seen people try to fight them, beat them up, but I've also seen clips of people on college campuses. There was one where they were like locking, they forced them into a room and were threatening to break the door down. And these are just like Jewish students at a college. Like they have nothing to do with this.
Yeah, the guy in L.A.
Which guy
died? Wasn't that L.A.?
Which guy?
The guy who was got caught up in the Palestinian thing, and he ends up getting hit over the head and dies.
No, I didn't even hear about that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jewish guy, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. All right. So you sent me these clips of Ben Shapiro when he was back on Rogan in 2019.
Yeah. This just goes along the lines of like being blinded by your own partiality.
Okay.
And even in terms of like how you view your Jewishness, your own religion.
Yeah.
And being so intellectual, but yet you miss intellectual thing. Like
Yeah.
you miss like basic intellectual stuff when it comes to something that should be obvious to you. Like, because his argument is horrible.
Yeah, I remember this being like one of the main like firm reasons why I was like, I can't really watch Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, me too.
When he did this on
Yeah.
Rogan. This was back in 2019. Let's check it out.
From a Jewish point of view, where we don't believe in the divinity of Christ, I
Right.
think that there you can make an argument that the Gospels, which were written,
He was just a prophet.
No, we don't even believe he was a prophet.
What do you think he was? What do you guys think?
I mean, what do I think he was historically? I think he was a Jew who tried to lead a revolt against the Romans and got killed for his trouble, just like a lot of other Jews at that time who were crucified for trying to lead revolts against the Roman and got killed for their trouble.
So he became legend in story, and it became a bigger and bigger deal as time
Yeah,
went
he
on.
had a group of followers, and then that gradually grew, and then
Do you think
there
he
was
was resurrected?
No, that's not a Jewish belief.
Okay.
So at this point in Ben Shapiro's life,
So he believes that Jesus was just a guy who tried to lead a revolt against Rome.
That's how
Yeah.
blind he
And he got killed.
Is that like in Jewish canon or is it just him?
That's just what he has inferred.
Okay.
You
Right.
know, because
Which-
they don't apply any divinity to Jesus at all. Yeah.
But like the simple historical fact of Jesus, like for him to like not even look at that, that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Like for you to be, that tells me like you obviously like don't even want to look there. You
Yeah.
don't even want to see it.
Right.
You know, you're like,
Right. I made up my mind on
I'm
what this is.
I'm gonna look over here. This
Yeah.
is what it is.
Made up my mind on what this
For
is.
a guy who
and-
likes numbers and historical facts,
Facts,
boy,
yeah.
put that one down there.
Right.
Them
But again,
feelings.
that's Jake's point. When your partiality is so strong that you will ignore, you'll just completely have blinders on.
But notice, real quick, right? I know you guys got to go on with this, but notice how he's talking to Joe.
Yeah.
Versus when he sits down with like.
Well, this is
what. Oh, okay, good.
He's
All right.
getting
All
there.
right.
He's
Yeah.
getting there. Okay, so are we playing the rest of this dude's commentary on the matter?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's quick.
Okay.
Holds that Jesus, he's not a great teacher or prophet, but that he is a mere common criminal. And not even a month later, after appearing on the Joe Rogan Experience making the statement, he interviews William Lane Craig, a great Christian theologian, on the Ben Shapiro show. And this is one of the rare instances where Ben Shapiro really, he gets humbled and he loses. Let's get into it.
What is the proof that Jesus was who he says he is in the Gospels?
Well, first we need to establish who he thought he was. When you look at the religio-historical context of the life and ministry of Jesus, I think you can show that among the historically authentic words of Jesus were claims that he thought he was the Jewish Messiah, that he believed himself to be the Son of God in a unique sense that set him apart from Jewish kings and prophets, and finally that he thought that he was the Son of Man predicted by the prophet Daniel, to whom God would give all dominion, power, and authority. So he had this radical self-understanding of being Messiah, Son of God, and the Son of Man. And at the trial scene before the Sanhedrin in Mark 15, all three of these titles come to a head when the high priest asks him, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One, that is the Son of God?" And Jesus says, "I am." And then virtually quoting from Daniel, "And you will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven and seated at the right hand of the power." And at that point, the high priest rips his robes and says, "You have heard the blasphemy. What more witnesses do we need?" And Mark says they all condemned him as worthy of death.
I always find that fascinating when I would read scriptures and it says, "And he tore his robes." I always be like, "What is that symbolizing?" Like
that's what they would do in their straight like angst, like that's how they would express themselves. Like, you ever heard like they tore their robes and then they put ashes on their head?
Yes.
Like, yeah, that's
that visual to me was always strange because I can't. Why would someone just tear their robes? Like, I'm so upset by this.
It's connected to their mourning over something. Yeah.
And that enabled them, since they didn't have the ability to carry out capital punishment, to deliver him over to the Roman authorities by slandering him as a pretender to be king of the Jews, and therefore a political figure who could be tried for treason and sedition and crucified.
So,
which is what you said on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
So they created the narrative that he was king of the Jews so that the Romans would see him as a threat and want to crucify him.
Right.
Yeah.
From the Jewish perspective, this narrative has some holes in sort of Jewish philosophy. The narrative begins with the idea that Jesus appears in front of the Sanhedrin and then claims to be the Messiah. Well, there's nothing actual criminally in any of the tractates that say that if you declare yourself the Messiah, this is actually a punishable offense. Even there are many Jews, including Bar Kokhba, who have declared themselves messianic figures. The real gap here is that in the Gospels, Jesus' vision of himself as the Messiah is completely different from the prior vision of what the Jewish Messiah is, and is actually outside the scope of how Jews describe the Messiah, or really have ever described the Messiah. The Messiah in Judaism has always been a political figure who is destined to do certain things, restoring the kingdom of Israel.
That's not true.
Yeah.
You can't say always.
Right.
You can say in the time of the Second Temple, even in terms of who was in power.
Right.
Because it's not always, because when you, like, just so people understand, like, there was a whole sect of priests that were from the Zacharian line of priests that were supposed to be the actual priests. These priests went away and they went into the desert, and they saw things a lot different than these Pharisaical and these Sadducees saw it. So we can't just say, and that's where we get the Dead Sea Scrolls from,
right,
which show us a lot of how they viewed things, a lot different than these Pharisaical priests, right? So, like, even him saying that, like, he's only leaning to a Talmudic view of how they would see things, and a post rabbinical tradition that's later.
Yep.
Right.
That's very important to so even his view on things is biased in that aspect, as far as, like, he's seeing things from the later rabbinical standpoint and Talmudic standpoint.
Right.
Maintaining control of that kingdom, bringing more Jews back to Israel. All of these things are considered sort of political things that the Messiah does. But the idea of the Messiah as embodiment of God is something that's foreign to Jewish religious philosophy, going all the way back to the beginning. So even the idea that the Sanhedrin would be
Not true.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just say that's why I'm saying, like, for him to say that, he's being, like, to me, it's almost like you could say emotionally unintelligible, right? Or, emotionally unintelligible. Because you're gonna miss a bunch of stuff. You're not really gonna look at everything, so you can hold to these ideas,
right?
And that's what he's kind of like. He kind of exposes with this.
Questioning him in those terms and would get from that what he means is I am God, which would be a much more punishable offense. Presumably that would be actual blasphemy. It's an oddity.
I think you're absolutely right in saying that Jesus' understanding of the Messiah was radically different from the prevailing cultural understanding of the Messiah among the chief priests and the common people. And he didn't meet their expectations. Indeed, that's what helped to get him crucified. Being the Messiah, you're right, in and of itself isn't a blasphemous claim. But to claim to be the Son of God in a unique sense, and then especially the Son of Man prophesied by Daniel, sitting at the right hand of the power, that is truly blasphemous and is sufficient for his condemnation. Now, the question, I think, that is raised by your
interpretation,
question, Ben,
yes.
your interpretation, Ben, is this. Why should we believe Jesus' reinterpretation of the Messiah rather than the one that the chief priests and the people held? And I think the answer to that is his resurrection from the dead. Jesus' resurrection from the dead is Yahweh's public and unequivocal vindication of the man whom the chief priests had rejected as a blasphemer. It is the divine demonstration that these allegedly blasphemous claims are in fact true, that he was who he claimed to be, and that therefore I follow Jesus in his conception of what it means to be the Messiah.
So when it comes to the resurrection, why is resurrection proof of divinity? So Lazarus is resurrected.
That was why I wanted to emphasize the religio-historical context.
Listen to that.
Before we talked about the resurrection. A miracle taken in isolation is inherently ambiguous. The proper interpretation of a miracle is going to be given by the religio-historical context in which it occurs. And the resurrection of Jesus is not just the resurrection of any old body. It's the resurrection of the man who claimed to be Messiah, Son of God, and Son of Man, and who was crucified for those allegedly blasphemous claims. If God has raised this man from the dead, then he has, I think, unequivocally and publicly vindicated those allegedly blasphemous claims.
So one of the counterclaims to some of this is that the Gospels are written significantly after Jesus lives. Even the earliest Gospel is written, 70 CE? Somewhere 40 years after Jesus is crucified. So what's to say, that like most historical events, there is some play in the joints here. So that this would be the historical argument against the exact veracity of the Gospel revelations, for example.
Now, I think it's important to understand, Ben, that in order for a historical document to be reliable, it isn't required that it be inerrant.
Contemporaneous, of course.
So, what I would argue is that underlying the inference to the resurrection of Jesus are three great independently established facts, which are supported by the historical evidence, and which surprisingly, I did my doctoral work on this in Germany, are recognized as such by the majority of New Testament scholars today who studied the historical Jesus. And these facts would be...
Now these historical scholars, they're not Christians.
Right.
So it's not like he's saying they're Christians.
Right.
Most of these are not. Right?
They're just historical people that
scholars.
study history, yeah.
Right.
His crucifixion and burial by a member of the Sanhedrin named Joseph of Arimathea, that Jesus' tomb was discovered empty on the first day of the week by a group of his female followers. Secondly would be that various individuals and groups of people then witnessed appearances of Jesus alive. And finally, number three would be that the original disciples suddenly and sincerely came to believe that God had raised Jesus from the dead, despite having every predisposition to the contrary. The vast majority of scholars have come to accept as convincing the evidence in support of those three facts, not assuming biblical inerrancy or inspiration, but treating the Gospels as ordinary historical documents. You can show, for example, that the fact of the discovery of the empty tomb is attested by at least 6 independent sources in the New Testament, some of which are extraordinarily early. No scholar denies that individuals and groups saw postmortem appearances of Jesus. The only question is whether you should or could dismiss them as hallucinatory. And again, nobody denies that the original disciples suddenly and sincerely came to believe that God had raised Jesus from the dead. So these three facts are pretty firmly established, and the only question is then how do you best explain them? And down through history, attempts have been made to explain these facts without recourse to the resurrection, like the conspiracy theory, the apparent death theory, the hallucination theory, and so forth. And I would argue that none of these naturalistic theories meets the criteria for being the best historical explanation of the facts. None of them is as good an explanation as the one that the original disciples gave, that God raised Jesus from the dead. And if that's right, then I think we have good grounds, indeed are almost compelled to revise our typical understanding of who the Messiah was supposed to be.
So, he's literally breaking it down in such a way that it's disarming him with mostly anything he can say. And then so when you hear what Ben says here, like it blows my mind.
Yeah.
Like the way he tries to come at this dude. Like, listen to this next part.
I also want to point out, like, when you look at the actions of the disciples after Jesus's supposed resurrection and how these dudes went on to establish the churches in different places and establish.
Well, let's talk about how they ran away.
Right.
Let's talk about how they all scattered.
They
right?
scattered, yeah.
They scattered like roaches in the light, right?
Yeah.
Like they scattered, right? They ran away. What brought them back together? What got them to be bold, right?
Yeah, the Holy Spirit.
There's no, like, even they didn't even know that Jesus was going to actually, even though he said it,
Yeah.
they didn't understand it. That's
Yeah.
what's crazy about it. That's what's so amazing about this stuff is, like, they didn't get it. Even when he was resurrected, they didn't get it. It says that Jesus had to teach them the scriptures.
Right.
They didn't get it. Even when Peter first gets the in Acts where he goes to Cornelius, you know, this Gentile,
Yeah.
right? And God is showing him, like, no, it's okay to eat these things now, right? He's showing him that it's different. Things are shifting because he wants to send them to these Gentiles' houses because Jews can't eat with Gentiles, right? So he's shifting things. And when he speaks to Cornelius, he says, I'm truly understanding that God is not partial. He's getting it. He thought, oh, well, it's about the Jews.
Right.
But he didn't realize, oh, it's greater than that.
Yep.
Right. So even we're seeing when you look at these disciples, they didn't know.
Especially Peter. I mean, him and Paul had their own little debates over that type of stuff.
Right. Well, yeah, the whole eating with Gentiles and
and
Peter kind of
circumcision.
shying away from it. Yeah.
All right, let's watch Ben's retort.
Have the historical argument back and forth, obviously, and I think that there are arguments that you can make. I think there are arguments that I can make. I honestly find them relatively uninteresting, is the truth. Simply because I'm not sure that we're going to come to any sort of consensus on them. You know, on the historical.
I find it uninteresting.
Yeah. because you already know where it's going to go. You can't.
You made up your mind.
Yeah,
you made up your mind. You're not open to hearing anything,
dude. Literally, the things he said were so like, to me, they're kid stuff. Like in terms of when you look at everything, and I mean the way he talks to him and breaks it down is very gentle. You know what I mean? Which I love.
I found that his reaction to this whole situation has been very emotional and childlike. Even like the way he treated Candace Owens over this whole situation.
Yeah, right.
And lashing out against her when she really didn't say anything that I would feel like he would be offended by.
Yeah.
But I think it's the fact that she didn't like equivocally come out and be like, you know, we need to send troops into Israel right now. Like, if you don't say that, then somehow you're what was the word he used for her behavior? I forget.
Disgusting.
Something like that. Yeah. Which is interesting. And then when she quoted "Blessed are the peacemakers," he offered her the opportunity to quit if she feels like the money she makes is keeping her from serving her God. He said, I think it was something like that, that you're welcome to quit Daily Wire.
Yeah, missing the point. But that's what happens when you're emotional, right?
Yep. All right, let's keep playing.
Argument, for example, I think it's fairly easy to claim there's a sect of Judaism right now in which there's a small subsection of people who believe that the Lubavitcher Rebbe is still alive. Right? The Lubavitcher Rebbe passed away in the 1990s.
Yes.
And there's still people who treat him as though he is not dead. They call him the Messiah. They think that he was the political Messiah. They have and they still do that 20 years after his death. You know, that's not proof to me.
There's people that still think Tupac is alive. That doesn't mean that, like, think about how Jesus affected the entire planet.
Yeah.
There's no comparison to what he's trying to say here.
That he is actually alive. Some of them claim
Nor
to have
did they.
experienced it. Right. So, especially when you're talking about events 2,000 years ago, if people write that down, I think there's
I doubt
sufficient.
this man's tomb is empty.
I mean, I haven't dug them up, so I wouldn't know. But the claims, if somebody claimed 2,000 years from now that his tomb was empty, or claimed 70 years from now that his tomb was empty, then
that's an important difference, Ben. The important time gap is not the gap between the events and the present.
Yeah.
Good evidence doesn't become bad evidence just because of the lapse of time. The critical event, as you just said, is the time gap between the events and the recording of those events. And in the case of the events of the life of Jesus and his resurrection, that time gap is extraordinarily narrow. We can push back even before the writing of the Gospels and the epistles of Paul by discerning the traditions upon which they relied when they wrote. And some of these go back to within, it's estimated, 5 years after Jesus' crucifixion. I'm thinking of the ones that Paul transmits to the Corinthian church in 1 Corinthians 15. So we're on pretty good ground there in terms of the earliness and the multiplicity of our sources for the life of Jesus.
So let's talk for a second about sort of the...
So from here on out, Ben Shapiro goes on to swiftly change the subject to get away from this. And I think it's very interesting that Ben Shapiro wrote a whole book with the title, Facts Don't Care About Your Feelings. But when he was dropped with 3 really big facts about Jesus' historical resurrection, he just said, I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. I thought that was interesting too, man.
Yeah. So we these people want to be, intellectuals and you know, but it's like, what's the point of all that? What's the point of even talking about these? Like, let's get to the truth. Do you want to just? I want the truth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I want the truth. If we are truly gonna, like, everybody wants peace, right? But you want peace the way you want it.
Right.
That's not real peace. If in my family I want peace, so I'm lying to my wife about the things that I'm doing so that I can have peace, that's not real peace.
That's not real peace.
It's gonna backfire in my face, right? But it's peace. But that's what Muslims do.
Right.
It's okay to lie to your wife so you can have peace in your house.
Wow.
Like, that's not real peace. So how is that God? I don't want to serve that God.
Yeah.
But so it's not, Jesus says that you're going to have tribulation. You're going to have troubles.
Yeah.
But I'm speaking to you. He was speaking to them ahead of time so that they would have peace. But he says, not like the world gives it, right?
Yeah.
And that's my point. Like, in terms of, what are we doing these things for?
Mm-hmm.
Are you trying to prove your race?
What are we
you
fighting
trying
for?
to
Prove yourself right?
Trying to prove yourself? Are you trying to prove your country? You trying to prove your nationality?
Yeah.
You trying to prove your religion?
Mm-hmm.
What are we trying to prove?
Yeah.
Or are we allowing? Or am I going to allow God to do the work?
Mm.
You know what I mean? Because when you look at Islam, these people are trying to prove themselves, right? They're trying to prove their God.
Right.
That's why if you say anything about Muhammad, there's problems, right?
Yeah.
It's a whole different way of thinking.
They can kill you.
Yeah. But if we speak about God, and that's where I think a lot of people get it wrong, like, because I heard George Janko talk about Andrew Tate. I think it was Andrew Tate he was talking to. He was saying, like, a lot of people think that because I'm quoting scripture that I'm self-righteous or that I'm, like, being prideful. It's like, it's not that. It's like, because I care. I'm reading these scriptures. I care about these scriptures, and I see how I can use it in my own life.
Right.
I see how they apply to my life. But people think, oh, you're self-righteous because they miss it, and they wanna shun you away, right? Because if they can do that, then they can settle it in their life that they can keep doing the same things because they already got you figured out.
Yeah.
Right? How many people think they know the reason why you're doing the things that you do?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then they call, they're just prideful. Oh, they're just cocky. They're just self-righteous.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't understand truly because you already judged the situation. You already judged the person. And you're not really trying to hear what somebody has to say. But when you humble yourself and you say, I want to listen to you because I see your life. I see how you move. I see what's going on with you. Why do you do the things you do?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I really want to know it.
Yeah.
That's a whole different conversation.
Yep.
You know, and when I hear a lot of times Ben Shapiro, it's not about that. It's about, I want to prove myself. I want to prove what I stand for. I want to prove,
Yeah.
but then I don't really stand for it. I only stand for it when it has to do with myself. Like that's not just.
Yeah. All right, I want to play one more thing just on the other side of things, just showing another aspect of how this situation has gotten so ridiculous and exposing the ridiculousness of these ideologies. This is a new growing trend on TikTok.
LGBTQ activists converting to Islam.
I started reading Quran.
I just started reading the Quran.
I've been reading the Quran, and I have a...
Salam. Good morning. And this is why so many people are starting to read the Quran.
So I ordered a Quran, and I just wanted to show you how heavy...
Okay, so I'm an ex-Christian reading the Quran.
Today, I'm going to go through fighting war.
Started reading the Quran. This is the
Quran on the Quran. It's like watching turkeys line up for Thanksgiving dinner. New growing trend on.
So this is TikTok is, and again we know that TikTok is a Chinese propaganda machine, and it's used to sow division in this country. So there's a reason why, I don't know if you guys saw that they leaked. Well, they didn't leak it. It was from the Guardian article from back in the day, but it went viral on TikTok. I wonder how. It was Osama bin Laden's letter to the U.S. during 9/11, right before 9/11. And all of these people on TikTok were making videos about how they read this letter, and now they understand, or they they pretty much are seeing his side of things for 9/11. And this trend went viral on TikTok. Bill Maher even commented on it on his show. Let's play this real quick, Mom.
In post, somebody put out this letter, or published this letter on TikTok. It had been around for a long time. Apparently, Osama bin Laden. We're not sure he wrote it. This is after he went underground. This is 2002, a little after 9/11. And he wrote, he did write a lot of screeds, always about how we're the evil and we're Satan and blah, blah, blah. We did everything horrible, and that's why everything's fucked up in the world. Okay. By Wednesday night, the Post says the letter had become a point of discussion. Some, these are the kids on it, saying its critiques of American foreign policy had opened their eyes to a history they'd never learned. Yeah, they didn't learn any history is the problem. So now you're going to get it from bin Laden?
Thank you.
And then you read, it's like, bin Laden? Really?
A lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. Thank you for your service. You're on the front lines. I refer to you, bro.
By the way, thanks for paying taxes so I can fly your airplanes. It was fun. But, yeah, I mean, look, usually it takes like 4 generations after a very awful historic event, like what you're seeing with people now kind of, again, denying the Holocaust, for that to happen. It's amazing to me that just 20-some years later, it is a failure of parenting, it's a failure of the education system, that to tell people how evil this stuff is. And there's something with TikTok. I mean, maybe it's social media in general, maybe it's a generation.
Nope, it's TikTok. I mean, like,
Seeds of Discord.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a cesspool for cultist behavior.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But real quick, right?
Yeah.
For both you guys, do you think TikTok is just people on there expressing opinion, or do you think these are agents like of chaos that are just pumping this out?
So I think what happens is it could be that someone is paid to make a video, and then TikTok's algorithm is gonna push anything that is gonna catch a wave and cause havoc in this country is going to get pushed into everybody's feed. So it's a simple thing. It could be some dummy was like, I read Osama bin Laden's letter, and I got to tell you, there's some truth in there. And then TikTok was like, let's use that, you know what I mean, and make it a trend. And then everybody starts making videos about how they read the letter, and everyone needs to read the letter and take Osama bin Laden for his word on things because he's going to tell the truth. You know what I mean? Like, and talk about how the U.S. I mean, pretty much the letter just was talking about how the U.S. was propping up Israel and it was a bunch of like, it was it was bashing capitalism, bashing the U.S., bashing the West, bashing Christianity. You know what I mean? Because I read the letter that everyone was talking about, changed their mind on things. But I just found it interesting that trend was going viral, and then you're seeing a lot of these people are being indoctrinated into, especially like these young woke millennials and Gen Zers are being indoctrinated into hating Israel for some reason. And you're seeing like them taking the side of Palestine without really knowing all the nuances of the history of it, and you see them spewing out these things like that, like the guy said to the woman at the bathroom, we know you guys are used to taking people's land and stuff. You know what I mean? But I found that crazy that like people are reading Osama bin Laden's letter on TikTok and then being like, you know what? They were right.
Yeah, man. It's again, it's we are so quick in that fallen state to latch on to pointing the finger away from us, so we can feel okay with the decisions we've made in our lives.
Yeah.
Right? How many people don't want to look and take responsibility for their own lives? And you don't have to when you're being given everything.
Yeah.
You know how many, like, I was just talking to my wife about this. Like, I'm talking about wealthy people, right? She was talking to me about people she knows, wealthy people and their friends. Like, how many of their kids that are in their 20s that they don't do anything. They just stay at home. You know, they just, because they're allowed to.
Yeah.
You know, and
no purpose,
but yet they spoiled. They have bad attitudes. You know, and this is what happens when you have unappreciative kids. You have unappreciative people. You have unappreciative adults.
Yeah,
because you don't realize, you're not looking too deep to see how things work, why they work.
Yeah.
How the infrastructure works, how these things even came together. Like, you don't realize any of it.
Yeah. And like he was saying, like, think about how history works. Most people don't know the history of that region, how many times, who occupied it, what countries used to, like, who occupied Gaza, who occupied what they're calling Palestine now and Israel. You know, they don't understand the history of that, how the war with Jordan and all of that. Like, they don't understand the history there.
They don't understand that there were millions of Palestinians that were in Egypt. They got kicked out. They were in Jordan. They got kicked out. They were in Lebanon. They got kicked out.
Right.
So there's something greater going on, right? You can't. So you're not going to look at any of those other countries, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that Israel is right in how they handle everything, but what I am saying is there's nuance to these situations, right? Anybody can point to how, like, look at how they were trying to point to the illegals that were coming over here, right? And how USA is treating them and what they were trying to make of that stuff, right?
Concentration camps.
Yeah.
Remember that whole narrative?
Right.
You know?
And to be fair, you know, I mean, let's be honest. There's most people, unless you really do your own research and look into this, and it depends on where you look too. The average person, they're not going to know this.
Yeah,
because they don't care.
Yeah, so TikTok comes along and it's a chance to virtue signal.
Yeah,
and they just jump on it because you start questioning them, you know, without being argumentative. They can't answer this. It's just like what I've noticed is this: the last few years, especially during the Bush era, it was a chance to make people look foolish, right? That spun with the right wing doing that to the left wing started first, and the right wing started doing it, and now I see this with more specifically the transgender movement. What I would see is somebody sticking a face. Do you believe men
can be women?
Men can be women.
Yeah.
And you see them doing. They don't know what they're talking about, and then they just give up and walk away.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. When they don't have the answers.
Do you think children should drink alcohol? No.
Yeah.
Do you think children should drive a car? No. Do you think children should cut off their sexual organ?
I don't want to have this conversation.
And they run away. They run away.
I'm not comfortable with this.
Right. It's just kind of like, I think it's a lot of that.
Yeah.
I think people just want to feel like they're doing the right thing. But you're right. It's woke culture going amok. They just want to sign on whoever they feel the victim is.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's the Marxist side of everything taking hold.
Mm-hmm.
That they tried to infiltrate this country with. When you look at the who they put in place at a lot of these universities, like
Yeah. And so it's our job to stand up in truth, but also in love, right?
Mhm.
Speak the truth in love. You have to stand up. You have to speak. You have to exercise your freedom. You have to exercise what God has given you, right? God has given us wisdom. God has given us knowledge.
Yeah.
He's given us understanding.
Yeah.
What's the point of it if we don't share it, right?
True.
Yep.
And to hold people accountable to it, you know? And then you see,
right?
Yeah, you're gonna get hit. People are not gonna. They're gonna growl at you sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, like I was saying about that situation I was in. Like, I had to hold him accountable. Like not in terms of like what he was saying to me, more to the situation, right? And that's what changed things. Like once I had to hold him accountable to the truth of the situation in a gentle way. And then because it was so obvious, that's when he it was just crazy. You just totally switched, right? Now, that doesn't mean that everybody will do that, because there's people that won't, right? There's people who will lash out regardless.
Right.
But I believe that it's our job to stand in the truth, no matter what, but do it in love. You know what I mean? And then we'll see people who will change. We'll see people who will receive it, and then there's other people who don't receive it. But we have to do it. We have to practice that, man.
I mean, we talked about this before. Jamie and I had discussed this. I think one of the areas where Christians lose is we feel that anything secular or worldly is unimportant to us. We want to basically focus on Scripture and do quotation of Scripture, right? So here's one thing that I've noticed, right? When people say religion is evil and more Christianity has killed thousands of people and religion has done this, and yeah, that there's some accuracy to that, but a lot of times where Christians fall apart is not knowing, quote unquote, the secular teachings of the world to say this. Stalin, Mussolini, Hitler, Mao Zedong,
Pol Pot.
Pol Pot, Idi Amin. These were all men who believed in Darwinism and atheism.
Yeah.
So if you're just trying to win a religious battle against them, when they start doing that, that's their way. They're trying to disarm you. But if you could say, hey, so have these men who believed in atheism nothing.
Right.
You know what I mean? So what's your point?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So I think sometimes where we lose people is not knowing enough about the world we're in. And I get it. We have to focus on something bigger, but sometimes to have the discussion, because they're just trying to disarm you.
Yeah.
And then you can show them, hey, listen, so has all these other figures.
Yeah.
You know, what have they done?
Yeah. Well, I think it's that relation. You're saying we got to be able to relate to them, God, in a way where they can receive it.
Right.
Right. And that happens through genuinely loving people. When I love them, it's like, okay, I know for me, this has happened to me. Like in my frustration of not being able to get through to somebody, I'm like, all right, God, help me to relate to them in a way where I can speak to them where they can receive it, speak to them on their level. How can I share it with them? And in that, again, I got to humble myself. You know what I mean? So it's always this, and that's where we get strategy from. Strategy comes in that way where we're like, okay, let me humble myself.
Yeah.
And then we receive something. Then I'll see something in a way I never saw it before. And I can relate it in a way I couldn't relate it before. You know, to me, that's beautiful.
Yeah, actually, Jeffrey commented right along those lines. John 14:21, those who accept my commandments and obey them are the ones who love me. And because they love me, my Father will love them, and I will love them and reveal myself to each of them. The big deal is that people will not humble themselves and go through the door of humility and find that Jesus is a God of his word, and he will reveal himself to them. Yeah. Yeah, man.
That's it.
Yeah, man. Let's wrap it up there. Thank you guys for watching. That was almost 3 hours. But yeah, man, we got into a lot of things, man.
When Simone's away, we will play.
Simone would have fell asleep 20 minutes ago. Missed that guy. But shout out to everybody who's been watching. Thank you guys for tuning in. Had a good amount of people on Rumble all night tonight. That's what's up. Appreciate y'all. Make sure you guys, if you want to support what we do over here at the Young Lions, go support on our Patreon. You can hit the patreon.com/youngliontv. Also, we have the Cash App if you want to hit us on there. Get the merch and music on our website, and at the link in the description, we got our song Grateful. It's still doing well streaming, so go stream that.
Excellent song.
And we got another one coming out soon, so stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for, great conversation tonight. Thank you, Mom, for doing everything that you do. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Young lion, go live, yeah. Young lion, you rich, yeah. This kingdom has room, yeah. Go and fight people.